We need to approve of the agenda.
So moved. Oh, sorry.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Input from the public regarding items not on open session agenda. Let's see, we have Miss Loretta Castleberry.
Hello?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. I have two things. First of all, I want to say that the Alumni Association put on the Faculty Appreciation Luncheon on May 15th. And I want to thank Jeannie and Chris and Karen and Mia for helping us out. We had a good turnout. Do you remember how many people? About?
It's way more than we had.
I would say it was partial.
Yeah.
About 100 people came. So, and it would be nice if that could be an annual thing. Just can't be the week of the golf tournament. And the second thing I want to say is, I'm going to read a list of names first of all. William Davis Blessman, Sebastopol. John Paul Mills, Sebastopol. Edward George Rainford, Sebastopol. Thomas Ray Bowen, Forceville. Ronald Dean Markham, Monterio. Gerald Thomas Parmeter, Cazadero. Dennis Purcell, Sebastopol. These 7 people were all killed in action in Vietnam and all Anley graduates. And the Alumni Association would like to put a memorial plaque by the flagpole down on the football field or the field, whatever it's called. And we'd like to have it finished so that we could present with the American Veterans of Foreign Wars on Friday, November 8th at the Ukiah football game. And so I just would like to have some input of how do we go about doing this. And that's all I have to say.
Casey Jones. Thank you, Loretta, by the way. We appreciate you.
Hello. Good evening, I think. Nice to see you all. I'm here with some things about next year. Overall, from the numbers that I've seen, attendance is up. There are a total of 203 transfer students that are a part of our fine arts elective. And if my math is right, a transfer student brings in about $20,000, Andrew, per student. And so that means that the total amount of transfers would bring a little over 4 million from those students to our school district. And so my next step through kind of the things that I'm working on is to survey those students. I know that Chris has done work with students who are exiting or transferring. And so for me and my goal, it's to say, how are you here for the electives? What do you do? Like, what do you enjoy and all those sort of things? Overall, the enrollment for and request for the fine arts specifically is about 850 student requests, which I think could be more given that there are 850 requests for fine art classes and 801 for unscheduled periods. And I think with all the amazing offerings that we have at Annalee, not just fine arts, I'm talking CTE and so many other things, we can really lean into offering and opening up access to so many students. So those are kind of things that I'm working on. And just to close up the year, we did a fantastic run of performances at the Sebastopol Center for the Arts, the Young Voices series, and that was very fun. And we had our spring jazz concert over at the Forceville Performing Arts Center. And then we did a wonderful spring band and orchestra concert in the theater. Luckily for the one in the theater, it was filmed and recorded as well. And so I'll be sending that to you digitally as soon as I sync up the audio and the video, because they were 2 separate things. And so the folks who weren't able to attend will be able to digitally attend. And that's also for a couple of scheduling conflicts. And I had one student out with COVID and for aunts and uncles and grandparents who are out of state or out of the area. So that's something I'm looking forward to. And I know Randy records all of the dance shows. So if you ever want to see a dance show, those are up on the YouTube channel, which is Tiger TV. And I highly recommend you check those out if that's something that you're interested in. Absolutely. But yeah, overall, enrollment is up, and I'm really excited to see all the wonderful things that the arts are going to do and to make sure that we inform the community as much as we can. Another thing to, lastly, I think 15 seconds, is just to look at how we can continue to keep just the money rolling in. So looking at fundraisers and different things like that, in addition to the awesome Prop 28 things that we got, which I'm so excited about. I can't stop. That's the second thing I talk to people about is Prop 28 after the band. Anyway, thank you all for your time, and I'll see you at the next meeting, I believe. Take care.
Thank you, Casey. Consent calendar. We have an item that there's interest in being pulled, the Community Matters Cal Hope.
There are four things that I wanted to pull out for a little bit extra conversation. The Community Matters contract, the School Services contract, the Cal Hope MOU, and then the Independent Study contract, which is number 9 on the next page. Yeah, I had requested just a little bit more narrative, but we can.
Let's vote on the rest of the
them.
consent. We'll vote on the rest of the consent calendar and then bring it up. Can I have a motion with those pulled?
I move that we approve the consent calendar with those items removed for the time being.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, go ahead, Debbie, with your questions.
Yes, so I had just reached out to Chris. Some of these, the community, do you want me to go one by one, Chris, or give you all my questions at once? So do you want to go like community? We'll just do one at a time. On the Community Matters contract, I was looking for a little bit of narrative. Have we done this particular training with this group before? And so tell us a little bit about the work that they do and how we evaluate effectiveness.
Sure. So Community Matters, you've seen contracts with them in prior years. They operate Safe School Ambassadors training, which align with our DEI initiatives, and they conduct trainings for students and staff. Particularly, the focus has been on anti-toxic masculinity training for student athletes, specific trainings for girls and all gender identities. And Anita Sanduina is our point person for coordinating and organizing and evaluating the effectiveness of those trainings. So Anita had written a grant to cover, I think, part of it, if I remember correctly, the second one, and requested to Andrew and I that we approve agreements for the following year to continue that work, deepen that work. And we believe it aligns with the DEI framework that we're close to completing with the committee.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I didn't pull it off for criticism. I just thought it was an interesting thing and I wanted to hear a little bit more about it. And so this is a renewal. Do we ever get any data on effectiveness? Are there perceptions?
I think that data shows up in Youth Truth, and that's where we, without over surveying our community, I think that Youth Truth is really capturing, an all-encompassing, all-encompassing data with regard to how our students feel. So there are direct questions in Youth Truth that we can measure and look at the effectiveness of this. And I think empowering Anita and giving her these resources as tools, she's taken it and running with it.
Great.
And it's been really, really, I think, valuable for our district.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then the school services contract, this is a renewal,
Mhm.
and the contract calls for a certain dollar amount, but then there's also a bit of, I think like $4,000 or something. like that.
$4,500.
But then there's also, they bill for other services beyond that. So my question was, in this past year, and maybe this is a question for Andrew, what did we spend on that contract?
The agreement was for $4,500, and that provides access to their services. And additional conferences such as the budget workshop in Sacramento.
Mhm.
That was the only conference we took advantage of, but I know that this is a valuable resource specifically for Andrew and our fiscal team. Andrew, do you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, no, they're always kind of I hate to say it, our beck and call, but if we have fiscal questions or something that comes up that they have more of that details on, they provide those services to us. So we pay that monthly subscription fee to them. And then any conferences that we attend with school services are above and beyond that. So we just went to the governor's workshop, the May revise. So it was like $1,200, I think, or so in conferences with them.
Okay. And So so it's mostly a Q&A type, like with the CSBA contract. You have,
Right.
you have questions, but you could theoretically use them to do an analysis of something, but that hasn't been something that has happened.
No, and I
recently.
think that would be additional service that would be charged out if they come in and do a study or analysis or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So we haven't done that
No.
to date.
no.
Okay, that was my question then. And then the Cal Hope MOU, that just looks really neat. And I just wanted to hear a little bit more about it because it was really buried down in there. It looks like it could be really good potential to help with some of our neediest students. So I just want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, we're really thankful to the Sonoma County Office of Education for recognizing the strong work that Laura's established here regarding wellness initiatives in prior years. And then obviously the community schools planning grant, we acquired $200,000 to spend over 2 years to implement the wellness coordinator position. So SCO was so impressed with the work that we've done, acknowledged that we're far ahead of the rest of districts with regard to established wellness center initiatives, that this grant was to help the district pay for Sheila's position to offset what the district's contribution would be outside of the $200,000 grant that we received last year. So that paid for her entire salary this year, but obviously would not have covered the entire salary. So big thanks to Tyson Dickinson and his team, and Laura and Andrew and I had a chance to meet with them, months ago, and we were eagerly awaiting the agreement because we knew it was going to net us $85,000 to sustain Sheila's position.
Okay, so then that answers my next question, because the MOU indicated that there's going to be a whole youth wellness group put together and that there'll be a plan.
So that's already
in
been
the first part of
established.
the year. Is that
You're talking-
Sheila's the lead on that?
Sheila and Aaron Ela with West
Okay.
County Health. So the Wellness Youth Council is just best practice with regard to having a council of students that provide feedback, suggestions as to the services that we could provide. So,
Huh?
we really need to hear from the students that are, acquiring those services, need those services, and can help to inform what they look like in future years. So it's already a process that's been established, but it was called out in that agreement to sustain and be committed to that process as part of our due diligence in receiving those additional funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Julie, I would love to have a presentation on that at some point when they have some information
Yeah.
to share with us to report out on. I think that would be a really great thing to hear from.
I think Sheila and Aaron would be happy to do that
Yeah.
and provide us some data. And I know that they've put together a beautiful infographic that shows like how many students have been served, and that's been circulating throughout the school community. Really, really proud of the work that we've done in terms of supporting all students and their needs.
We'll put that on a future agenda.
Um,
Sounds great.
And then the last one I had some questions on was the independent study contract. And I know that had come forward before and then it went and it's back again. And I just had some questions. I'm not sure if these are necessarily things that need to be in the contract, but I know in the past, I think there was one time that there's some abnormalities with our contracts, and I think it was chalked up to just not getting signatures on it. But I'm just real concerned about, the revenue that we can lose if our contracts aren't like completely to the letter. So I did a little bit of extra research on that, and I was just wondering, so let me, my tiny font here. Does the agreement doesn't specifically outline minimum instructional minutes?
No. And that's not required. So
Not required.
if-
So how do you prove that? And then the same thing with like the synchronous instruction requirements. How I guess some of my questions are just on how this independent study is rolling out. So the contract was sort of brought up the questions of how attendance is recorded, how the live interaction and synchronous instruction take place.
did you happen to have a chance to read the designed web page? Because that outlines all that information, and I included that as a link in the board item. And to answer your specific questions, because we had an audit finding, which was really regarding the lack of signatures, and this was, the prior administration at the Laguna campus oversaw, independent study for the district. There were gaps, and we had to start cleaning that process up last year. So that's why the contract came, or the independent study agreement came before the board last year, because we made some revisions, worked closely with our auditors, We examined ed code with a fine tooth comb. The links are in the contract, so families can reference that. The requirements that are that we're obligated to have within the contract, we actually recently had some review based on this year's audit where we followed up on the prior audit finding and went through with our specific auditors regarding what was included in the contract, showed them the new agreement. The main changes to this agreement are highlighting the expectations for when a student is not deemed successful in those color coding areas. We haven't changed the way that the program is being offered. We rebranded it and opened up an opportunity to serve more kids. So Jane Mays is our teacher. She's wonderful. We've currently served this past year 45 students because it's based on the number of sections that we offer. The contract allows for 15 students per section. So there was such a need. We started the year with 2 sections, being able to serve 30 students. And we ended up increasing and changing Jane's assignment mid-year because we had such a demand for independent study. And this really aligns with the district's vision of how we can further utilize the former El Molino, now Laguna campus in terms of, alternative to comprehensive high school programs. So moving it to Laguna under their schedule allows us to have 6 sections because they operate on a 6-period bell schedule with a common prep, thus allowing the district to serve 90 students, 82 of which will be annually because you can only serve up to 10% of your total enrollment. So eight spots are preserved for Laguna students.
Mhm.
Those students are working towards an annually or Laguna diploma respectively. The CDS code for those particular schools remains the same because they're earning an annually diploma. The learning platform maintains Edgenuity. Jane's requirements are clearly listed in the website in terms of the expectation to meet at least once per week. The time frame of that looks different, from kid to kid and how much engagement, but Jane's really, really diligent. She's agreed to be mobile. She'll be moving back and forth from Annalee to Laguna. She's going to maintain home base because, as you'll see later in the agenda, we're proposing an MOU for board ratification to allow Jane to be a 1.2 because she was really passionate about continuing to teach the wellness course
Mhm.
while also feeling confident that she could maintain the 1.0 responsibilities of the full-time independent study position. There is going to be administrative oversight from both the Annalee team and the Laguna team. Greg's the point now that he's the principal there and kind of operates all of our alternative educational program. We're really, really excited about this. Again, we vetted it with our auditors specifically, and we've ensured that the biggest piece is not to miss the signatures. And so then we also collect evidence for the auditors to ensure that we get our apportionment and don't lose ADA. Some of that evidence includes direct printouts from Edgenuity in terms of the course content and how their success is monitored and tracked. But also Jane keeps really good, diligent hard documents that captures the attendance, the meetings, and the auditors really appreciated that. So as long as we have the signatures within the time frame and we have that evidence, we're not going to lose apportionment. And we're committed to making sure that, we really monitor those kids, follow up. That's why we wanted to have some clear expectations. Independent study students, they'll sign a 1-year agreement. If they want to continue the program, they have to sign a new agreement each year. And we want them to maintain in those positive color codes. Otherwise, the district does have the right to put them back in regular program.
Okay, great. That's really great information about, the structure and getting all of our I's dotted and T's crossed. And I think I know the answer to this just from some of the narrative that you just provided. But one of the things I was thinking about is, we're increasing the number of students that are going to be able to do independent study. And there's a lot of different reasons why students do independent study. And sometimes students do independent study because there's a lot of trouble in their life and they can't make it to school and they're struggling. And the thing that I wonder about, and it sounds like Jane with the wellness and everything like that is going to be on this, but I am just wondering about how are we making sure that kids don't slip through the cracks? And they might be getting their grades done and everything like that, but how are we providing wraparound services to make sure that they're getting all of that good wellness stuff also?
Absolutely. One of the things that we're proud of in terms of relaunching it, we're the ability to articulate that students that are on full-time independent study currently have had access to the wellness centers at both Laguna and Annalee. And in talking with Joe Elwood, have already taken advantage of participating in interscholastic sports or clubs. And that's all clear on our websites. 3 benefits of joining West County I Academy. Receive support from a full-time teacher who is willing to be flexible and meet when and where it's convenient for you. So Jane's going to be mobile, and she's okay to go out to the library out in the far west. Engage with district-wide wellness resources and participate in school activities such as teams and school dances. Create your schedule with support from an academic counselor and choose classes from a robust course catalog. So the students that are meeting with Jane at the Laguna campus, they will be able to take advantage of, one-on-one therapy with Chris, the outreach therapist. Shannon will be their counselor. They've got 2 administrators in Gianna at Annalee and Greg Alexander at Laguna. And then again, those students that are Annalee students or live in the Sebastopol area, and it's more convenient for them to meet with Jane at the Annalee campus, because Jane will also have home base and it's right within the wellness center up in the student center area. They'll be encouraged to take advantage of that. We've had these conversations with West County Health. They're really excited about some of our initiatives and increasing more dynamic educational program, because we know public education is changing. So I hope that answers your question. We thought that all through. We think that the services that we provide to all students, we want to ensure that we're encouraging and communicating that with the students who are on independent study. And, one of the things I'm so confident in watching, the careful care that Jane provides these students and her diligent approach to building those relationships, we believe that Jane is going to thrive and the students are going to thrive as well.
Wonderful.
Cool.
Thank you for that.
You got it.
I'll move approval of those 4 items.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Action on items heard in closed session. Sean?
I, trustee Trinillum, move to approve the recommendations of the administration in student discipline case number 3-2324. Who'd like to second?
I'll second.
And it's a roll call vote. I think that's your job to call.
Okay. Debbie?
Yes.
Jeannie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Liz? Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Reports. Association reports. Do we have anyone who would like to present from Teachers Association? No. CSEA? No. Okay. Board reports. Debbie?
So yes,
I just want to say, I guess everybody's on vacation, summer vacations.
it's summer vacation.
It is.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the Laguna and Annalee graduation ceremonies were very moving. Both included inspiring speakers, and it was just really so nice to witness the celebrations. There seemed to be a lot more confetti at the Annalee graduation this year than last year. Hope it wasn't too hard to clean up. I attended the Capital Advisors May Revise, and the big topic was the governor's Prop 98 maneuver. It sounds like that all of the CSBA lobbying might be working to pull that in, but there's no proof of that yet, but we shall see what happens. And the implication of that would be that funding would remain stable for this next year, but we would be needing to repay that in future years, and it could erode the and maybe you can talk about this when you do your report later. It could erode the baseline amount of money that California schools have really counted on for a long time. So it's a pretty significant political maneuver, and we should all keep our eye on it. Let's see. Oh, along with Sean, Chris, and Dan, our new human resource director, I attended the Russian River Rotary meeting last night for a listening session. there were a number of members there who had attended our graduation at Annalee, and they expressed, that it brought up a lot of feelings around the consolidation, and we heard that there's still a lot of anger and distrust of the district. Chris talked about working with folks to, help break through that, and heal. There was talk about broken promises from the Unity Initiative. It was pretty unanimous that people were pretty upset about how that went down. They raise a lot of money for students, and they don't really feel like they have a school anymore to call their own. They don't really feel welcome here. A lot of their donors are hesitant to donate to Annalee programming. And the Rotary is adapting by providing scholarships and grants and making sure that they go to students who live within the El Molino former attendance area. They have a long history of working with teachers and staff, and you could really feel that they missed the collaboration that they used to have with the teachers and staff and students of El Molino. They found it difficult to engage with Annalee at the same scale. Schools, and this is my take on it, schools really are the hubs of our communities, and people come together, and it's a gathering place, and that's sort of the idea with community schools, to provide a home base. So, I really would like to see what we can do to help mitigate that and keep that community vibrant. There was also, and we have later on our agenda tonight, we're going to be talking about a new bond. They didn't seem aware of that necessarily, but there was a lot, there were people that were very concerned that they are still paying off bond dollars and they don't have a school. So we'll talk about that later when we talk about the bond, but I just wanted to mention that it sort of organically came up. And so I don't know if there's going to be a lot of support from that group for something like that. That's all I have.
I too attended Laguna and Annalee graduations. Laguna was extremely hot that day, really warm, but it was really delightful. I appreciated the fact that when they announced their awards, they didn't have kids come up and accept awards. They just had them stand, which made a huge difference in the fact of time and people sitting in the sunshine. And then for Annalee's graduation, it was one of the calmest graduations I have ever witnessed. The kids were so well behaved. I don't know if it's because they got the life threatened out of them or what, but there was no tortillas for the first time in probably 20 years. Although I'm one of those that I don't mind the tortillas. Birds can eat them. Anyway, I did talk to Chuck about the confetti at the end, and they bought those special cannons that were timed to go off at a certain point. And he said they weren't cheap, but he said it really did add to the ambiance, and I think that it did. I think it was really
confetti.
It was really cool. Anyway, I think it was done very well. The one thing that I wanted to point out that I thought was so moving was not only did one of our students, but so did our teacher speaker, and so did Chuck in their in his kind of remarks. They all brought up the portrait of a graduate. And I, for one, want to look back there at Mr. Blake and say thank you for all your help with that, because he was quite instrumental in that. And, there's a group of us that spent about 2 years on that. So it was really, I was moved to the point that especially the student talked about the portrait of a graduate. It's like, wow, obviously it's been talked about in her classrooms and the posters are evident and somehow it struck a chord with her. And I thought that was pretty awesome. And then for Jared Brown to also talk about it during his teacher speech was pretty remarkable. So I think we probably have more work we can do with the Portrait of a Graduate, but I think that it's actually launching. So I was really pleased with that. Thank you.
Yeah, so as Debbie mentioned, I attended the Russian River Rotary meeting with Chris and Dan and Debbie. And I can echo what Debbie said, but I think that there is some mistrust, but really there's a place to move forward from. And what we really need to work on is uniting the division that was created by the consolidation, and not just that, but the name change that didn't happen, and that's a pretty raw spot. So, but I felt it was productive, and I met some wonderful people, and I hope that we can work together with them to create something positive.
So we had a DEI meeting earlier this week, and I just want to say that committee is really effective, and the DEI framework document is 98% done. There's a couple little tweaks to it. It'll come out in August. And it's really an amazing piece of work. I mean, it's been a year and a half of work by a really broad group of teachers, parents, students, and in the DEI, there's so many aspects of it, but one piece of it that I think is a really long range piece of work around equity and inclusion is this old tribal split that we're still dealing with between the river communities and the Sebastopol community. And the consolidation really hurt it. And I think the way the consolidation was handled and the name change, my personal opinion, was really poorly handled. And that's made it worse. But this goes back to old high school rivalries from 50 years ago. I've talked to people that to this day are angry about football games that happened when they were in school, you know? And so that's tribal, that's old, it's classist, it's rural versus townies. So we have a lot of work to do there, and we can. And I'm really glad to hear, Sean, that you feel like there's some movement. You know, I think the kids have moved beyond it way more than the adults, but a lot of adults are still holding it. And it's time to let go. You know, it's really poorly handled. The whole process was a mess, but this is where we are. We do have a school right now. We have one group of students, and the students are amazing, and we have an amazing group of teachers, and we have a great administration. So we just need to come together around that and not avoid talking about the split, because it needs to be addressed with care and empathy and compassion, and it can be healed, but not by pretending like it's not there. It's everywhere you turn. It's still around us. So let's be honest about it. It needs work, and we can do it. Done with my sermon.
Okay, thank you. I just am real quick. I went to the graduations too, and I thought the kids were at both sites were so amazing. Super polite, super excited, very grateful. It was, I was just very proud of the Annalee and Laguna communities. They were great. And that's it. Superintendent report.
Thank you. I know Loretta spoke to this, but I'd like to thank the Alumni Association for supporting Employee Appreciation Day in May. The barbecue was very nice and well attended. I enjoyed coming out and grilling up some dogs. I really want to recognize some of the amazing work of Heidi Mickelson in terms of acquiring funds in her CTE coordinator capacity. So throughout the last year and a half, Heidi's acquired $1.5 million with the Strong Workforce Grant. We were recently awarded $200,000 for our CCAP agreement, which is the dual enrollment agreement with SRJC, 100,000 for Laguna, 100,000 for Annalee. The Career Technical Education Incentive Grant was $200,000. Heidi's written that grant for the past, I think, 4 years. The Golden State Pathways Planning Grant, although we were disappointed and supported Heidi in her own disappointment for not being awarded the implementation grant of 2.9 million. So obvious reasons to be disappointed. We did lift her up and say, hey, you acquired a $200,000 planning grant, and we can go out for another grant when the next RFA is released. However, Heidi is resilient and she's not willing to take no for an answer. So she's drafted and worked with some folks to appeal the state's decision. So 2.9 million is still on the table. We'll see what happens, but couldn't be more proud of the work that Heidi's done in that capacity. And obviously we know what she's done over the years as a teacher, but she's really emerged as a leader within our district. Had a really, really great meeting with Herman Hernandez Sr., who founded Lo Cien. Mia invited Herman to be a part of the interview committee when we were selecting her replacement and ultimately hired Dan Blake. Herman and I sat next to each other. We exchanged numbers, and it had been on my agenda to set up some time to meet with him to discuss what we heard from Debbie and Sean and the purpose for why we went to Russian River Rotary last night. So I met with Herman at Tia Maria and Roseland. And we didn't really talk a lot about school. We talked life, we talked story, we got to know each other. I felt his passion for what he stands for. He felt mine. And, he set up the meeting last night. We are committed to representing the Russian River Rotary as part of our district cabinet, and that commitment is reflected in Dan Blake's job description. When I came in, it was part of my commitment to be involved and represent the district with Sebastopol Noon Rotary. So we see this as an opportunity to leverage those relationships and continue to bring these two communities together. And I won't continue to echo when we heard from Debbie, we heard from Sean, we heard from Lewis. I'm committed to taking the action that's necessary to open up those forums and bring these two communities together. I'm really eager to share with all of West County some of the amazing things that we have been working on in our district. And we realized that we increased district publications and information internally, but now the next step is to make sure that that's broadened out to the greater community, people that aren't getting the Parent Square messages. So I've given Gloria a project to work with, media outlets, clubs, organizations all throughout West County. Through QR codes, we're going to put together a mailing list of those folks that are willing to receive that information, and then we can add them right into our Parent Square groups, and they can get that internal messaging. I think that we've done an incredible job of overhauling the district websites, thanks to Jenny, kind of mentoring Gloria in that regard. They established some standing meetings, and the work together as I think it's reflected really well in our communication efforts internally, but we need to expand that. And I thought that the meeting last night was a really great opportunity to meet again with that club. I was a guest presenter last year. And it's a step in the right direction, and it's our responsibility to continue to follow up. And our intention is to provide, some informational sessions beginning in August. We'll host that at the Laguna campus. From there, we can continue listening, continue the conversations around healing, but also share with the greater community the work that we're doing in our district at Annalee and at that Laguna campus to light it up and create that community hub of resources and start to share some of our visions for educational program. I'd like to acknowledge that, Mary Fricker had suggested a while back, how great it would be to continue to honor the past history of El Molino, and reached out to Greg and myself, and we came up with the idea of creating the Historical Preservation Committee. I put Greg as the point and lead for that committee, and Greg helped to organize the first of what we hope to be many meetings. The meeting was well attended. We have a representation of district folks. Mia was at the meeting, Julie McClellan, Paige Greco, Mary Fricker, Diane Hughes, Leslie Grossel, who's here today. Thank you. And Rich Carnation, who's the current board president in Windsor. He's an Elmo alum. And he told me if I ever take his picture off the gym, he was going to kill me. And so, our intention is to preserve, highlight, and promote all of those historical elements, but also look towards the future and how we can honor those past traditions by creating new educational programs that are going to meet the needs of the current students. As we know, those demands have shifted specifically and dramatically post-pandemic. So you'll continue to hear me talk about the vision for creating a new educational program. I had a really great conversation with Diane Hughes today. So Diane's a employee of the West County Transportation Agency, longtime Forestville resident, former CBO at Forestville, Elmo alum, and I didn't put the name together. I see Diane at all of our council meetings, but we talked today, and she mentioned that Greg had talked at the that first meeting around the visions of creating this community school. So she asked some questions. Andrew and I were able to share, just a kind of a snapshot of what we hope to do there. And she was really, really positive and appreciated the way that we're looking at rebranding El Molino under this new potential program. I think the goal is to call that program El Molino Academy, Laguna High School Continuation, and we've got West County I Academy. But then just, recreate that educational program within that community school context that, you continue to hear about as we go through that process and planning to open those doors in 25, 26. So, gained another ally there and somebody who can help spread the good word. I know that she mentioned that there is a big alumni event and she's going to be there, and really, really excited to hear about our vision for what we can do for students of West County and honor those El Molino traditions. Graduation ceremonies were amazing. We talked about rebranding the district through the reimagination of our strategic plan and mission statement, which will be reflected in the LCAP presentation tonight. Really, really proud of that. I've received some amazing feedback from our staff. One teacher said she's already got it on her whiteboard and she's excited because we've embedded equity into everything that we do. And on that note, we're going to be working with a gentleman who's contracted through SCO, and we believe that SCO can pay for this. So before I commit, but what this person does, his name is Joel Rabin. He creates really dynamic promotional materials for districts, and he builds them around the LCAP and creates like a digestible LCAP document that is accessible to the public and really can showcase what the district is all about. And in that, we're going to relaunch the Portrait of a Graduate, because I also really appreciated the threads of the POG in all the graduation speeches. Greg's speech was all about resilience. Students talked about resilience and those other attributes that we hope to leave with our students when they graduate. So the district administration team, Chuck, we're all planning to relaunch that POG, put it to action, create graphics that mirror the infographics that will brand the district's vision, our reimagined strategic plan, our DEI initiatives, and our new mission statement. So a lot of great, exciting things to kickstart going into the next year. Sorry, that was a lot, but lots going on.
Thank you. Discussion, action, business services, bond survey results presentation.
Oh. Okay, Brian Moore.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting to that item. So this is, we've got Greg Isom's representative from Isom Associates. Isom Advisors. I get that wrong all the time. So we haven't met. I figured that's who you were. Greg's on vacation. He apologized he couldn't be here tonight, but Brian is here to present the bond survey results. So there's, no action for this item. This is really, a presentation to make sure that the results are digestible for the community, and we clearly understand what was discovered through the polling. So I will kick it to you.
So working? Yep. Okay, great. Thanks. And I think I was here last time when we did the, in 2017 for the bond survey presentation. I was telling Andrew earlier, like it was pouring down rain last time and I parked a little too far away because I didn't know how to get here. But and during the process here, feel free to ask questions. I may say we're going to answer that in a couple slides, but feel free to ask. And I'll also compare a little bit to the survey from 2017 as well, just on like percentages and numbers and things like that, and why things might be a little bit different from then to now. And I think everybody has this. Yes. Okay. Oh, we got it up there too.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's up there, but it's.
So the district has roughly about 35,000 registered voters now, which is about roughly 3,000 more voters than it had in 2017. So an increase from then. So the survey was conducted assessing the feasibility of placing general bond obligation measure on the upcoming ballot. It was conducted from May 28th through Saturday, June 1st. Did anybody in here by chance receive the survey? Both of you. How did the survey go? Okay. Okay. Okay, that's good. That's good news. Great. Well, that's good feedback for us that the people that we hired to do that are doing a good job. So thank you. Anybody on the board by chance? Okay, just curious. So the survey tests the voter attitudes for the district, the projects that would be funded by the proposed measures, as well as tax tolerances. We reached 407 households with a plus or minus margin of error of 4.8%. That's pretty standard to have 400. If you can get 400, some communities we can't get to the 400, but that's kind of the magic number for surveys. So these questions, for the most part, were asked in order, with the exception of the one on the bottom left there. If you've had any children or grandchildren attending, that was asked at the very end of the survey, just as kind of a out of curiosity question. So, and I'll just go through these. Asked how the education in California is headed, and if it's in the right direction or wrong direction. And this is for the whole state, by the way, on this one. 28% right direction, 26% wrong direction, 26%, 26% don't know, 46 wrong direction. And that's fairly consistent, maybe 2 percentage points off from the survey in 2017. So the overall feeling and opinion of the state in their education hasn't changed over the last 7 years. How would you rate the quality of education provided in West Sonoma County Union High School District? These numbers moved a little bit from 2017, but the main number that we actually focus in on is the poor and very poor, because that usually indicates if there's a negative perception of the district going on in the community. Anything less than 10%, you're doing pretty good. So it's raised a little bit from when it was in 2017. Those two combined was 6%, and those two combined now are 9%. So, and I think as indicated, oh, sorry, 12%. And so, sorry, the number was, if it's below 15%, because I remember it was a couple points below, not 10%. But as discussed earlier, as everyone kind of gave their report there, obviously there's some things that have happened over the last 7 years that the community feels strongly about, that maybe they didn't support as much as we would have liked. But the fact that it's still under 15% is still a good thing. So, I mean, when you get above 15, 20% in both those categories, there's some work that needs to be done in fixing the perception of the district and the community. So while there is a lot of discussion going on in the community, it's not to the point where they're not supportive of the district. So that's a good thing. And then also, and this also plays in the factor too, and so keep this in mind as we go through this survey. If you have any children or grandchildren in the district, 52% said no, never. And that's about 10% points higher than where the survey was in 2017. So they have no connection to the district. Any questions so far? Okay. Next, we rolled into perception of teachers, principals, superintendent, board of trustees, and the district managing finances. Sorry, Andrew, you just never get any love over here. On most finance people don't. But what we looked at is how that's changed from when we did the survey in 2017, and how the perception is within 2 to 3 percentage points from where it was 7 years ago. So that we also consider that a good thing. Next, these are kind of holistic questions here. Good schools improve property values. 93% of people agree with that statement. Because the state level of state funding for public education, local voters need to do more to protect the quality of the education in local schools. 80% people agree with that statement. And that's consistent with numbers 7 years ago as well. So then when we jump into actually now talking about the feasibility of putting a measure on the ballot here. And so we read the statement, the West Sonoma Union High School District is looking to make class and school facility improvements, considering placing a school improvement bond measure on the upcoming ballot. If asked right now, if voting right now, would you say yes or no? And we do this on purpose, not to give them any information, just to see where they're at. And then we give them more education, then we ask the question again at the end of the survey. And so out of the gate, 53.8% said yes, and 4.5% said likely yes. And we kind of put those two together in kind of the yes category. I apologize, I didn't read the thing here. Let me read this, and I'll read this verbatim here, because that's what the ballot language would say if it were put forward at these amounts. To improve the quality of education, construct, modernize, renovate classrooms, restrooms, and school facilities, replace outdated heating and cooling systems, and replace leaky roofs, shall West Sonoma County Union High School District's measure be adopted authorizing $123 million of bonds at legal interest rates, generating an on average $6.5 million annually, as long as the bonds are outstanding at a rate of approximately 3 cents per $100 of assessed value, with annual audits, independent citizens oversight committee, no money for salaries, and no money taken by the state. So they're very specific on how many words you can have in there to express that. So like I said, out of the gate, it was 53.8%, 4.4% leaning yes. It's needed a 55% approval. Out of the gate in 2017, it was 67%. So much stronger 7 years ago, right off the bat. And when we get to the last question, I'll touch upon the points of why there's a little bit of discrepancy there. Some you're already aware of. So then we jump into the projects to talk about what the funding would be used for. And so all these projects, if you go back once, there we go. So for these 3 items, all 3 of these tested at a 75% approval rate. And so expand and renovate career technology education classrooms, repair and replace leaky roofs, renovate and construct science and technology labs. These are the 3 that people responded most to. That's above 75% approval rate. These were listed randomly in the survey. They're being listed by most supported to least supported in the PDF here. The next slide, all of these on the next one, these 5 projects received a 70% approval. Making health and safety and handicap accessible improvements, improving student access to computers and modern technology, upgrade inadequate electrical systems, replace deteriorating plumbing and sewer systems, and replace outdated heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. Some of these questions are somewhat similar to other questions, and it's just how they're worded to see if people respond better to how different wording is expressed. And then lastly, on the 3rd page here of projects, these were all supported at above a 55%, which is the minimum that would be needed. And so all the projects that were actually questioned all received above 55% approval. And once again, these are modernize outdated classrooms, restrooms, and school facilities, replace outdated and energy efficient windows, improve PE fields and facilities for schools and community use, modernize and preserve the buildings and facilities at El Molino High School for school and community use, construct new classrooms and school facilities. And as typical People sometimes get a little more excited about the projects and less excited about the price tag. So we test tax tolerances here, and you'll see these numbers be a little bit less than support for projects. And that's pretty consistent across the state and with most surveys. So we tested a couple different ranges here. The maximum that you could levy would be $30 per $100,000 of assessed value. And out of the gate, 55% said yes, with 1% leaning yes. In 2017, that was 58% with 3% leaning yes. So a little bit higher, but not significantly higher, but a little bit higher. At $25, 58% said yes with 1 leaning yes. And then at $19, it goes up to 63% saying yes with 2% leaning yes. So as typical, if you lower the cost of something, people become a little bit more favorable of that. But all three of them are above the 55% that is needed. Questions so far? Well, these are calling voters, so it'd have to be all residential. So it can't be a business owner unless the business owner lives here, then he's not going to be voting here, right? And so, as far as what facility they live in, or we don't have that data. We just have addresses, and names and things like that. That work? Okay, great. Okay. So then we come back to the original question again, after we've given more information on the projects, more information on the tax rate and things like that. And you can see in the gray there, that's the original question. Afterwards, it increased to 57.5% voting yes and 2.9% leaning yes. And so it shows that people are a little bit sensitive to the tax rate. But as they receive more information about it, they're more supportive of it. And so that's trending in the correct direction, which is a good thing. Some of the reasons why it's maybe not as strong of a survey as it was 7 years ago. One is just the economy. Inflation, surveys we've been doing up and down the state this year, all are coming in a little bit lower than where they were in the past couple of years. And I think people are just having to tighten up that belt, the belt on the budget a little bit. So second, if this goes forward, this would be the third bond measure in the last 14 years. And then thirdly, as kind of discussed earlier, I think there's still some strong feelings about the closure of the high school and the consolidation. And so I think all three of those factors kind of play into a little bit of a lower percentage number than what we saw 7 years ago. Any questions?
Yeah, Brian, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I thought we were going to, and maybe you have this data. It probably won't be something that you can just answer. It might be a report that you need to send us. But Greg had indicated that he would be able to show us where the respondents came from by former attendance area.
And I don't have that exact number, but I talked with Greg about it, and he said it was roughly 50-50. Like it was
What was roughly 50? Where the
roughly half the people were of the former El Molino High School District,
Mhm.
or sorry,
attendance area.
attendance
right.
area, and then the other half were roughly from the other one. And so it's he said it was roughly about, not exactly 50-50, but ballpark.
Right. And does
They're
he have that
representation
like
from
on a
both.
map, or is it just by zip code? How does he visualize that?
It's I'd have to probably follow up on the exact details of how he did it.
Uh-huh.
But we have like zip code information. We also have precinct information.
Right,
And so it has like elementary school information and
right,
who who that used to feed into.
right.
And it has old high school code information as well. And so you can split it up by that. So
Just for a more thorough understanding of this information,
Mhm.
I would really like to get that information to review. So if he could forward that to Superintendent Meredith, and
sure, absolutely.
you.
I'll have Greg forward that on.
thank you.
I have a question. Would the results be affected, do you know, or how much they would be by other schools in our area going for bonds?
They could be. There are other districts in the area that are going out for bond measures. If I would say in the survey, probably not unless they were surveyed by that other district. They might not be aware that another district is going if it overlaps with them. But it's only going to be an overlapping district that would potentially affect them in the response. So it'd probably be an elementary, a feeder district. If they were going out for bond measure and somebody had, both surveys call them, or be aware that another measure is going on. But yes, that could absolutely affect somebody. Hey, I'm getting hit from both sides here, kind of thing.
I was just thinking of when it came to voting and you saw two bond measures on there, one for your elementary school and one for your high school.
Typically, in those scenarios, we've found that if somebody is supportive of the schools or supportive of the schools, be it and they understand that, hey, this is elementary and this is high school, these are different districts, and these are different resources that are being needed by these people. If I'm in favor of the schools in my community and support them, I'm supporting both of them.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. There's sometimes some people say, my kids are out of elementary. I don't care to support that anymore. Right. But for the most part, if it's their community that they live in, if they're supporting the schools, or they're supporting the schools. Louis, you look like you had a question. Okay, great. Other questions?
I have a similar question that to Julie's question, and not specifically other bond measures on the ballot, but what would your impression be if there are other tax measures on the ballot? There are several sales tax measures that are going to be on the November ballot in Sonoma County, in Sebastopol, possibly. And then the city of Sebastopol is also about to have really skyrocketing water rates, like doubling water rates, because of some long-term infrastructure.
Right.
So it's not a bond, but it's, same thing. We need
Right.
to fix our stuff that's crumbling. So the sensitivity and prices, gas is up. I mean, just cost of living is really tight. Sometimes these types of surveys, they do like the initial question and then they give some information that makes people think, oh, that might increase their response. And then they do a note, like a question that makes people, it tests their sensitivity to other measures. Would that be something that would be useful for us to, just understand, or is that something that you can just based on experience, if you have other tax measures and costs in the communities?
Right. I mean, let's be honest. If we all see 15 tax initiatives on our ballot, I don't think anybody's going to be excited, right? Because we all work for a living and have bills to pay and it's tough. And that's where people choose, hey, I'm supportive of this, I'm not supportive of that, and what have you. Can people have, ballot measure fatigue when they're going down? Absolutely. Is it more ideal to probably only have, only your two school district or one school district bond measure on there and nobody else? Yes. Can we, stop other people from putting it on? No. But it kind of goes back to, once again, if people are supportive of the schools, they're going to be supportive of the schools. And that's, at the end of the day, that's the message that we, as the board and as educators in the district, need to communicate is, hey, these are going to the kids. These are going to help support the schools. We know that California doesn't help at all with infrastructure unless you're doing a local measure, and then maybe they'll do a matching sometimes. But as far as your per pupil funding, it's usually used for Band-Aids to fix things, but not really fix things. And so that's the message, that needs to be communicated to the community is there may be a lot of other things there, but this is for the students and the kids in the community to help them have better facilities to be educated in. And so, like I said, ideally, yes, we'd love for everyone else not to go when we're putting a bond measure on, but can't do that. Whether that's a survey, I don't, in my opinion, I don't think that would be a effective use of money to do a survey like that to get that pulse, because we're talking about factors that we can't influence. And so, I guess the purpose would be to influence the things that we can here in promoting the district and the resources that are needed to help the kids. So that would be the answer to that.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is related to timing.
Okay.
Because it kind of goes along with Debbie's question about all the different things that are happening. Being that this is a presidential election year, is it more effective to do a bond measure during that period of time? Or is it more effective to do it as a standalone?
That's a great question. I don't almost probably, unless it's a unique situation, I almost always say no on a standalone because that costs money for a district to do a special election. And when you can do it, why pay for it when you can get it for free, right? In doing an election. Secondly, typically, your casual voters will still vote for presidential elections. And in looking at the data for the district, those typically the casual voters are also supportive of the schools. And so presidential elections are usually very good times to go for school districts because you have more voters that come out. And most of those, percentage wise, those voters are more supportive of school districts than maybe your less well attended elections. Think of maybe your voters that are going to vote, you know, in every election, as any election that comes up, they're going to vote. Oftentimes, and I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes those voters will typically be less supportive of any measure that's going to put more taxes on them, no matter what it is. And so, like I said, but so presidential November elections are usually, you get a higher turnout of people that are more supportive of school districts. But that's a great question, though. And then a kind of a follow-up to that for the board is also, you know, we don't know where we'll be in 2 years or 4 years, kind of as the state of the economy. Will, you know, be in a better spot or a worse spot. And so in past, in kind of advice we've given, if you have the need for resources and you have the support for resources, then you should do it. Because you never know if things might change down the road on support or economic situations or things like that.
I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else have another question? You made the comment about the cost of running the election being on a ballot. Wouldn't we still have a piece of the cost of a ballot for the November election? I know it would be much greater if we did it on our
Right.
own.
Yes, I apologize. I was just referring to like a special ballot where you're having to fund the whole thing.
Right, so we would still have to
Yeah.
fund a portion, but that's shared with everybody else that's on the ballot.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation.
I was just going to wrap it up on the last slide.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Didn't mean to rush you.
No. You want to kick me out? That's fine. It's okay. Basically just driving home everything we just talked about. 80% of the people that were surveyed feel that local voters need to do more to protect the quality of education in their community. Before receiving information, there's roughly 58% approval. After receiving more information, it went up to about 60% approval. All the projects were over 55%, and all the tax rates were over 55% approval. And so our kind of last invitation here is, as you move forward, continue to reach out to people in the community, your key stakeholders, you know who those people are, you know, Chamber of Commerce, people that have been in community a long time, people that people listen to, and help educate them. And, you know, if you're getting their buy-in and support, that goes a long way in helping share it and communicate that with the community. And that would be the conclusion of my presentation.
Thank you very, very much. We
You're welcome.
appreciate
Any
it.
other?
Loretta, I know, is this the comment you want to make? Yes. As long as there's no other questions. No other questions. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Loretta,
No.
now you got to go up there and use the microphone and all that stuff. Thank
Okay,
you.
am I on?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. I just have a comment about this because I feel like I have a pretty good pulse on the Sebastopol community. And although our organization has actually paid to do a bond in the past couple of years ago, and we have always supported the bond, I'm not sure if you need this area of Sebastopol to pass it. I'm not sure this is the time to do it. And here's why. There are a lot of people who are still upset about paying for Palm Drive Hospital that we no longer have. There's already a movement online to block this bond, which comes from the far west area. Sebastopol residents automatically are getting a $261 property tax for the consolidation of the fire district. And that's not a voting issue. It just happens. The voters just passed Measure 8 sales tax increase for our fire districts. The Sebastopol City is considering a sales tax increase for the November ballot. The Sebastopol residents, as Debbie said, are getting almost a 100% water and sewer rate. Sebastopol just passed the increase of the garbage rates. And in the last election cycle, residents just voted for Sebastopol Elementary School bond. And so when people have talked to me about it, they said, enough is enough. We can't afford it. And so I'm wondering if this is the right time to do it. And even though it might cost us money to wait for the March or whatever the next election cycle is, that maybe it would be better for the Sebastopol area to weigh in on it. That's all I have. But if you decide to do it, we will support it and we will advertise for it. But I'm just not sure it will go.
Thank you for your input. We appreciate it.
Can I give you guys some
Go right ahead.
next steps? So, in the interim, we need to continue talking with community leaders, and that's something that all of us can do. And I'm going to make an intentional effort to reach out to the folks that, both our presenter mentioned, people that Greg had advised me to reach out to, and people that I've already built connections with. In the interim, district administration will be preparing the resolution for the board consideration. And what I'm proposing is that, this is a big decision for the board, and just bringing a resolution doesn't mean that the board is going to support the bond, but it gives us time to continue to get more information and seek input. I would propose that we do a special board meeting in July. All of our board members are obviously committed to our district, but also are mindful of the community. And I think that it's going to entail, all the representatives of the Board of Trustees. And we know that Julie will be on vacation on June 26th. So we touched on that with Greg. He would be available to present. And again, that just gives us more time to think about this. And in the interim, before we set the agenda for what would be a special leading up to the June 26th board meeting, we can decide whether or not we want to put that resolution in front of the board. But we will continue to work with Mr. Isom to prepare for that and give the board an opportunity to make a decision, an informed decision. So I just wanted to let you know next steps based on my conversations with Greg and based on the results that were presented today.
So the timing on a special meeting would be between now and June 26th or in July?
It would be in July.
Okay.
Yeah. We would target the last week of July, the week of the 29th.
And just so people understand why that has to be done then is that there's a deadline of when you have to get the item into the registrar of voters to get it on the ballot. So there's a tight timeline there. We have to be cautious and aware of that.
Anything else? Okay. Consideration of approval of AB 1200, public disclosure of collective bargaining unit agreement with confidential supervisory and management. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second? Sean?
All right. So this is to outline the agreements that hopefully, if passed later on under HR, that demonstrates that the district does have sufficient funds to cover those agreements that had been discussed with management, confidential, and supervisory.
Any questions? Concerns? We ready to vote? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Public hearing regarding the West Sonoma County Union High School District proposed budget for 2024 and reserve transparency disclosure. So the public hearing is now open. Andrew, you have a presentation.
Yes, thank you. So for our public hearing, we're looking tonight, that will both be in conjunction with a public hearing for our local control accountability plan, looking at the general fund as presented for a draft projected budget as of today. And throughout when we posted this, it has changed. So as different things kind of continue to happen. So we'll be looking at this, and then we'll be bringing back both the local control accountability plan and the final proposed budget for adoption on June 26th. As usual, our budget is highly driven from the local control LCFF funding formula, and looking at really what our enrollment is and the projected ADA. Again, we looked at ADA at the 91% attendance rate for the overall district, which includes everything from the consortium all the way to our 12th grade students. So our enrollment is looking to increase or to kind of decrease a little bit from last year, but we already know these are based off of the demographic study, and we already know that enrollment is a little higher at Annalee. So we know that there's about 50 additional students that have enrolled, but until the students actually show up, we'll make those adjustments at first interim, especially after the census day in October, which will kind of set our new benchmark. So then you see that then enrollment will increase 25, 26 and kind of stabilize there. We're kind of stable over the next couple of years. Average daily attendance, you see we're going down from the 1430 to 1419 and then climbing back up, meeting the little increase. And then again, just kind of stabilizing. So fluctuating by about 20 ADA if we keep at that 91.9% ADA rate. Again, funded ADA, though, is going to be this coming year based off of the 3-year rolling average. So we're getting that higher ADA. This is the hold harmless ADA is out. So we're basically at what our current ADA rate is for that 3-year average. It doesn't have any inflated numbers. It's actual true ADA over the past 3 years. As we look into 25, 26, we're going to be funded at the current year rate because that's going to be higher than the 3-year rolling average and higher than our prior year. When we get to 26, 27, we'll be funded on the prior year. which is higher, would be higher than 26, 27 year and the 3-year rolling average. Is a look at the local control funding formula. This coming year is really our physical cliff as to where our ADA is kind of coming in line. We kind of were held harmless. Some districts had their physical cliff last year. We're actually going to see that this year with that reduction in funding, almost by $1 million. And of course, that's attributed also to the 1.07% COLA that is projected to be for next school year. And then we go back up and receive additional dollars based off of the ADA that's going to be happening. And then you see the proposed COLAs of 2.93 for 25-26 and 3.08 for 26-27. As you look at kind of the income that is coming in, we do have our federal funding with our title funds, special ed funds, but as we know, the special ed funding does not even fully support special ed, as we have a large contribution to the special education program, as most districts, all districts do. And then we have our state funding with the art and music block grant. Those are the one-time funds we've been able to use other one-time dollars before dipping into these funds. That this coming year we will be using the majority of those funds for the plan that was approved last month. And then we have our arts and music, our Prop $28 that are ours, not necessarily one-time funding, but they're new funding each year depending on what the state general fund is. So, and they have a subscribed date as to when those dollars have to be spent. So each year that'll fluctuate. Our community schools partnership program that we'll be utilizing the remaining of those dollars this next year. The Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, $1.4 million or so that we received, those dollars will be used up this next year. Our lottery, unrestricted, restricted, and then we have some mandated costs that come in based off of various formulas at ADA and a set dollar amount. Our local funding with our donations and local grants, one-time funding for the donations have not been booked at budget. We'll book those again after we finalize what current year expenditures are and finalize those and then roll those back into budget at first interim. And interest, we've gained a lot of interest this year because interest rates have been higher. We don't know what interest rates. They're going to stay steady with, Fed, I believe it was today, or just recently announcing that they're potentially looking at only one reduction of interest rates. So, that's a volatility of how much additional dollars could potentially come in from funds sitting at the county treasury over the year. So then, looking at all of the various expenditures, the various dollars, really looking at each line this year and seeing what has been spent this year and in the previous years and kind of adjusting that. This will be my third, 22, 23, 24, and then, my third budget cycle that will actually be mine. So actually having those trends, really looking and establishing what has been happening over the years, tracking things so that we can really see what's been happening, kind of getting a better pulse on things and having a better idea of how we can budget and kind of get in line to what's been happening. And then if we look at, of course, at our largest expenditure is for staffing and support of our educational programs. We have about 183.21 FTE in a combination of certificated FTE at 1.5. We were anticipated to have 3 reductions at the second interim. Overall for this year, we've come out to about 1 reduction due to the increase of the anticipated enrollment that's happening, and then program supports and shifting some different things of educational program with TOSAs that are being supported by the funding that Heidi's brought in. So that's kind of where those shifts have come in. The additional increase in certificated administrator by 1 vice principal at Annalee. Classified staff basically remains the same, confidential and supervisory at 6, and classified administrators remain the same. For this public hearing, we are, after this, we have added an additional 0.4 FTE, 0.2 for wellness, and 0.2 for academic support due to that increase of anticipated enrollment showing up to ensure that all students that the master schedule is being built have those supports. Looking at the additional expenditures and costs associated to build this budget. The one-time funds, as I said, have been removed from the, actually, let's say 24, 25, or that were from 23, 24. Those one-time funds have been removed. And then, of course, looking at all the various program grant awards that we have, remaining those expenditures in line, not staying within that grant award. So we're looking at that with the exception of the grant awards for special education and transportation. They do not cover those full costs. And you see special education anticipated contribution of almost $4.6 million. And then we do support the workability program at an additional almost $40,000. Home to school transportation expenses are budgeted, estimated from the JPA to come in about almost $1.5 million. Our estimated state revenue is only about $910,000. So that current estimated contribution is almost $600,000 to the transportation, home to school transportation program. As we move into looking at the combined multi-year projection, you see where revenue is based off of the LCFF revenue calculator, and then the other anticipated grant awards from state and federal. Where those dollars, you can see how the revenue is going. We're staying about, $31 million overall. And that's a combination, again, of both the district and us being the LEA representative for the consortium. So these are combined dollars for all those programs for our preschool through 12th grade program. Expenditures have gone up. The negotiated salary increases have been placed in there. Any approval of further salary adjustments will be added. Shall they be approved tonight to this final budget? You see that our expenditures are exceeding our revenues, so we do have a deficit, but we are spending down one-time dollars that have been banked over the past few years because other one-time dollars have been being expended. So you look at our beginning balances onto the net changes of the fund balance. We have a beginning balance, anticipated beginning balance for 24-25 of just over $11.5 million, and then ending at about $8.5 million there. We still continue to meet the state minimum of the 3% reserve, and then we do have the additional set-asides and assignments for restricted reserve, our reserves that are restricted dollars of almost $2 million. And then the LCFF supplemental, we anticipate to have about $110,000 carried over from current year. That will fluctuate as soon as, we finish closing out finals expenditures, so that can fluctuate a little bit, as well as all these numbers will fluctuate as we come into the unaudited actuals in September. I tried to keep them so there's not a lot of, as I call it, fallout at the end, but there will be some. Not sure as to what it will be, but hopefully it's not too big of a fluctuation. Then we have the reserve for textbook purchases and special education. You do see that the ending fund balance is at a negative, so we are spending each year more than we are bringing in currently, anticipated. But we continue to have enough funds, even once we get down to the assignments and then having the unappropriated amount. So overall, by the time anticipated at this point for 26, 27 to be about $1.3 million that are still to the positive once we get there. So we knew there would be some adjustments with salary increases plus any increases that are happening. We've heard tonight many a times over and over again about Sebastopol water. That is going to double our sewer and water rates. We've anticipated that with the new HVAC systems coming in at Annalise main building. What will be that shift from gas to electric? What will that electric cost be? Some of those unknowns, but we've put some money into those budgets to anticipate, hopefully, as much as we can. Not too much, but we don't know what it'll be. So we'll continue to look at those. So our next steps is really to finalize the budget and just get that finished and ready for next week. Continue to work, wait for Saturday to see what is finalized, at least by the legislature in an adopted budget to the governor. And then the big three, governor and assembly and Senate, need to come to some final agreement to have that final trailer bill into to the governor to sign to finalize the budget. Legislature will meet their constitutional agreement by Saturday to have that, and then we wait and see truly what is going to get finalized. Let's wait and see. The maneuver, I think the governor's maneuver for Prop 98, that's kind of where he didn't want to count the almost $9 billion as Prop 98 revenue for last year. That was an overpayment basically to school districts. They anticipated higher payments with ADA and everything going out, but that didn't materialize. So governor didn't want to count that towards the Prop 98 funding, but it was deposited into Prop 98. So with CSBA's advocacy and other statewide educational organizations, I think the legislature agreed to change that maneuver along with the governor to keep that as Prop 98 dollars. Yeah, keep that as Prop 98 dollars, except there would probably be a suspension of Prop 98, meaning that they won't need to, they can pay that $9 billion almost over the next, during the 3-year budget period. So just be kind of depending on how they finalize that, if we'll be hit with deferrals. The one deferral that might be coming that I've heard is the June apportionment payment for 25 will roll into July and get paid in July. It's just a state mechanism, but then we'd have to ensure that we have the cash on hand to pay our obligations in June. So as I prepare the cash flow for budget adoption, we'll make sure that we have that. If not, we'd have to take other appropriate actions there. And then we'll come back on the 26th, and then we'll be able to, if there's any, once the budget is finalized, we'll make a 45-day revise if needed.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, Andrew, thank you for giving some description there around the multi-year projection. I'll say when I looked at that, it was very alarming to me. I know we've had the net change in our ending fund balance it has been decreasing. We've seen that appearing for quite some time. We have some hope that enrollment at ADA is going to kick in and bring us more revenue. But I worry because if we keep waiting for that and it doesn't materialize, then it really looks like, after 26, 27, we come to the end of that. And I pulled up the multi-year projecting? Because these numbers look really high to me. And so I went back and I looked at the second interim from March. And I was pretty alarmed that in March, our net change in ending fund balance for 24-25 was projected to be 1.2 million, rounding it. Currently, 3.2 million. So that is $2 million that hit for the 24-25 year just since March. And then it rolls out into future years too. So I guess my question is, besides, hoping for enrollment, are there other strategies for bringing that into alignment? Because also I think 2028 the parcel tax expires, and that's what, like
$1.8 million.
1.8.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if those both hit at the same time, we're going to really be looking at a lot of loss of programming.
Well, I think that, we've talked about ongoing district initiatives to increase revenues, and it does entail enrollment, and not just sustaining enrollment and increasing ADA and addressing chronic absenteeism from the current students, but we've been extremely impressed with our enrollment projections and how the actual enrollments and the interdistrict transfers and the students that are showing up from our in-district communities has increased. We were up 55 students last year from projections. I think we may double that this year. We've got somewhat of a 500 incoming freshman class. The decision to move the West County I Academy and create that full-time opportunity, going from serving 45 students within the current Annalee certificated FTE, by doubling that and creating 90 seats, which then open up another 45 seats at Annalee, you're looking at an increase of at least $1 million in revenues, because that program cost us one teacher. If that program fills and there's a further demand, there's potential for us to increase that to 2 FTE and 180 and increase district revenues by $2 million. So as I look at Andrew.
I'm sorry, the independent study program?
That
We
is
can
correct.
expand that
Oh, absolutely.
because the cap is 10%.
It's based on it. Well, it's based on, we would be within that threshold for Annalee, right? Because the majority of those students, so as long as we stay under 10% of Annalee's population, so there's potential there to serve, 180 students almost, if we're mirroring district enrollments. The initiative to create the community school, I think, has tremendous value in terms of potential revenues, because the enrollments will exceed the costs of running that type of program. The difference between a comprehensive program and the type of program that we're building is the staffing costs are dramatically lower, because teachers can teach outside of their credential. You're creating a dynamic entrepreneurial type hybrid program. So your overhead is much lower than the revenue potential for the enrollments, right? If you're looking at cost of staffing, the campus is already lit up, so we're not necessarily concerned with, additional utilities costs. I mean, there's potential for the district to increase, revenues by $3 million in the next few years with the vision that we've created since I've been in the district. I learned from the former superintendent I worked for that you have to create sustainable initiatives to increase district revenues, and you build programs that provide opportunities for increased enrollment, not just sustaining or getting ahead of declining enrollment. And I think we've done a really, really fantastic job of that. And I'm really proud that I think we're serving the students of West County first and foremost, but this district has always been a melting pot, but it's never been more of a melting pot of Sonoma County. And I know I've shared this with the Board of Trustees. I predict that our 27% inter-district percentage, which is a third of the current enrollments in the district, it's going to go up to probably 33% when we recalculate for the upcoming year. So many students are leaving their neighboring districts. And again, we've got kids from Petaluma, Casa, Rancho Cotati, all 5 Santa Rosa schools, Windsor, Healdsburg, Cloverdale, now Lake County. So I don't see that changing. I look at the climate around the county. I look at some of the issues specifically within the Santa Rosa City Schools District and, 5 different areas, 5 different comprehensive high schools. Those interdistrict transfers are flooding our desk. And I think at some point we're going to have to say no, because I don't think that we're going to have enough room or the facilities to serve the potential that could be a 2,000 student school within the next 5 years. Revenues will increase, programs can be sustained, new programs can be developed, but I think we really have an opportunity to hone in and, continue the work that I've been doing since the district gave me that authorization in November of 2022 to create the design team and start looking at how we further utilize the former El Molino campus. That in it of itself is a major revenue increase opportunity for the district. And then I think, addressing chronic absenteeism. Now that we're out of the 3-year rolling average with ADA, we've got to continue to develop programs that engage students and as Chuck says so eloquently, help them find their place here. Shift mindset, shift the way that our educational program really meets all the students that show up and provides that equitable opportunity for students to engage in the ways that make them want to come to school. And I think that's reflected in our new strategic plan, which is the LCAP that, we'll talk a little bit about today and seek inputs, but we're really well aware. I think this is one of the things that's on my mind all the time is my fiduciary responsibilities as a superintendent. And I'm never just thinking about next year or even 26, 27 reflected in the MYP. Andrew and I have a 6-year MYP that we look at often, and we're thinking about what it looks like. And obviously we're at the mercy of this 1.07 COLA, but the fact that we've done so many great things responsibly with regard to finances and have been able to take care of our staff, both the Teachers Association, CSEA, and management to create this destination district for employees, that needs to then reflect in opportunities for students. And I think all of those things I just mentioned are part of our vision to sustain our revenues and make sure that we get out of and keep ourselves out of any kind of a deficit situation. So
Right. So we are in a deficit situation, and I appreciate the vision, all of the vision that you just described. I'm coming from a place of just sort of more, I think, fiscally conservative, still trying for all of that and to grow that, but also keeping our costs in alignment, because increasing attendance is worthy, because if we have students who are enrolled and aren't showing up to school just academically, and then there's also the side benefit of, getting extra funding. So win-win all over there. But I really, and I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to be a broken record and just mention it again, because putting a lot of eggs, maybe not all of our eggs, but a lot of eggs into this inter-district transfer basket worries me, because districts have been known to close their borders and not sign inter-district transfers. And if some of the larger districts in the area, or one of the larger districts in the area, said, we can't keep bleeding students, and they stop signing inter-district transfers, then we can't do that anymore. It'll be, so I don't know if that's something that any other districts are looking at right now, but it just worries me that that's sort of like our solution, that we're just going to keep getting these inter-district transfers.
Debbie,
because
what
that
would
could
be
end.
the logical solution in my mind when I look at that as a potential, because that could be a reality, is we've invested in program and staffing and FTE to meet our enrollments. If we didn't have the inter-district students that we have, the staff and educational program at this school would currently
would really
diminish quite a
shrink.
bit.
Yeah.
So I think that's our responsibility to keep up with those trends and right size the high school based on the enrollment and the needs of the students. Right now, we're in a really fortunate situation that we're able to provide this really comprehensive, robust liberal arts program, and we have what meets the needs of the current student population. So we have to stay ahead of that. And ultimately, with declining enrollment, albeit districts closing their boundaries, or the fact that we all are well aware that West County is a very expensive place to live and we're not going to continue to get young families, we're going to have to continue to build and sustain Annalie's amazing reputation for those districts that are open. And there is a pretty, I didn't know this when I became a superintendent, that it's not good form to deny a family's interdistrict transfer request. And I was coached up by a lot of the superintendents in the county. But to your point, you're right. I've heard that Santa Rosa may consider closing their boundaries. I don't know that that'll ever come to fruition because I think there's other challenges when you decide to do that. Families then tend to move, they find loopholes, they send kids to live with relatives. You know, I think families are going to go where they feel the best educational programs are. And hats off to our staff and everything that's been created here before my time and the work that we've done since I've been here, that we've created a place that people really want to come. So we hear you, Debbie, and I do appreciate that you're acknowledging that the margins are narrow. I think that that's good for everybody in the public to recognize, specifically because we're going to be negotiating again with our labor partners as we only agree to a one-year agreement with this marginal COLA and the fact that we've really invested in our employees with the money that we banked. We're going to have to be very, very conservative, but continue forward diligently and passionately about our vision to create new program and create those ongoing sustainable sources of revenue.
And in September, we'll have even a better picture of where things are. But it just from March to June. We would
Any other questions, comments from the community? Okay, our public hearing is closed. Okay, facilities maintenance and technology. Consideration of approval of the final construction documents for project AA36 Annalee High School. Oh, it kind of cut mine off, so I'm not sure what this is. CTE classroom building project and approval to submit the project to the Division of State Architects for review and approval. Can I have a motion?
I move that we consider approval of the construction documents.
I'll second.
Go ahead, Jenny.
You know me, I like to have the longest agenda items ever, or titles, and sometimes
Yeah.
agenda items. So tonight is kind of a process that we've gone through in the past with prior boards. It's kind of memorializing the board's commitment to a project. We have worked hard with our educational partners, our architects, our other consultants to come up with the CTE facilities that we're presenting to you tonight. The construction documents are so close to being finalized. And we are prepared to submit those plans on June 26th at our DSA appointment in Oakland. And tonight we'll have Steve Kwok with Kotroki Kwok Architects walk you through the building. We have some nice interior finish and exterior finish boards. This kind of gives you a feel for the colors that we've chosen and carefully selected that align with what we believe truly represents our community and our facilities on campus, and how we really see these buildings folding into the greater campus. So without further ado, Steve, you have the floor. Just let me know when you want me to move slides.
Is that it? Okay, good. All right. Yeah, as soon as the slides come up, we can get started, but I'll just tap dance while you're doing that. Huh? Anyway, thank you for giving me some time this evening to go over the project with you. It's been a while, I think, since we've talked about this project. Probably the schematic design presentation was the last time. And so, as Jenny mentioned, we're getting ready to submit to the Division of the State Architect. It's a big milestone for us. It's the culmination of an awful lot of work on our part to get the construction documents together. So, what we wanted to do this evening, though, is just kind of show you where the not where the actual construction drawings are, but where the design of the building is. We could go through the construction drawings, but we'd be here until tomorrow. So, with that sort of preamble, what I wanted to do is go through these slides. They're maybe a little bit hard to see, so hopefully you've got this a little bit in advance. We've sort of wanted to identify the area of the project. You all kind of know where it is. It's up in the northwest corner of the campus, sort of bounded by the cafeteria, the village, the old auto shop, the annex, and then to the north, Eddie Lane, and then over to the shop building. So that's kind of the area. The existing Makers building is going to be demolished, and there's, I think, a couple of portables in there that'll also be coming down as well. So that's our area of work, our area of our project. Next, please. This slide sort of showed there we go. Some of the site development that's beginning, that came together rather in the process, excuse me, it's allergy season, so my voice might not make it here. But you can see that's kind of the colored areas of the area we're going to be providing new paving, basically providing an area for students to have pedestrian access through this, particularly as the northwest corner of the campus continues to be developed after this project. We really kind of wanted to set the stage for that. But to generate a lot of student gathering areas, making those student pedestrian areas pleasant to sort of go through. So particularly as students are coming from the area over by the football field, sort of that central quad there, to transition past the cafeteria up into that central gathering area, which will be bounded by the cafeteria and in our new building as well. And then beyond to the rest of the campus, all the way up to Eddie Lane. We just wanted to have that nice, consistent sort of pedestrian experience for students to be in that area. Next. So the project, if you recall, is actually 4 separate areas. For some reason, we've named them sectors. Somebody, I think, is a sci-fi fan or something. I've never called a building portion a sector before, but anyway. So we have 4 different areas of the project. At the very top is sector A. We have some innovation labs and fabrication labs up in there. The next area down is sort of the ag area. There's a ag science lab in there and a classroom. And we'll go through these in a little bit more detail. The third one down, the orange area, that's the new culinary facility. And then sector D is essentially a couple of flexible classrooms, but also closely aligned with that culinary to provide an opportunity for hospitality and that sort of thing. Next. So here we have sector A. Again, a little bit hard to see, so apologize for that. Look at that. You're just a wizard. Anyway, so from left to right, on the left-hand side is basically sort of what we're calling our innovation area, where we have a lot of technology in there, and it's going to be basically the clean side of this part of the project. So you've got your computers, your engineering and design will happen in that lab. So you'll have 3D printers and a couple of other things. There's a nice large monitor area so presentations can be made. But there's a strong connection to the area to the right, which we're calling our super fabrication lab. So that area is kind of the dirty side, where all of those things were imagined and designed on the left-hand side will now have the opportunity to be created on the right-hand side in our super fabrication lab. So that's the connection between those 2 spaces. That's why there's a big double door between those 2. The super fabrication area has a couple of roll-up doors so we can bring materials in, and then a roll-up door down to the area between this building and the ag building below it, because there's a large courtyard there. Projects can be rolled out through that roll-up door, brought into that courtyard area, be worked on out there, in that environment, in an outdoor environment. The super fabrication lab studio also has some storage associated with it, and it also has what we call a collaboration room. This is for small group instruction. It's also for student teams to get together and plan and work on their projects. Just kind of a fun space for them to be in. There's lots of glass, be able to see in and see out of what's going on in there. So it's a little bit of chickers. Yeah, just about the size, a good sized conference room right there. So it's not as big as a classroom, obviously, but an area for, 4, 6, 8 students to get together and work on stuff.
Actually, the intent of this space was that's where all students will drop their backpacks and check in, and they'll hold their safety meeting in there and then go in to the fabrication studio. So it's actually a very cozy environment with potentially 30-ish kids. And it was modeled off of one of the facilities that we visited, and was really helpful when the teachers were identifying, what if we have a sub? We don't want to let them loose and all this stuff. So it would be a place where a sub could have an activity that wouldn't be letting a bunch of students into an area where maybe that sub wasn't qualified to observe that equipment. So it's supposed to be a myriad of things where students could potentially take tests, and the high visibility between both spaces. I don't know.
It is approximately 12 foot by 14 feet, something like that. I think that's about the dimensions. So it's not real big. So. Yeah. The other space that's in here that I need to mention, of course, is a staff restroom, because that was one of the requests that was very important, that we get some staff restrooms as we're developing this portion of the campus. So next slide, please. So this is the next sector down, Sector B. I'm going to go the opposite direction. On the right-hand side this time is our Ag Science Lab. So that's specifically for the Ag program, for them to do their laboratory work in there. Directly adjacent to that, to the left, is a prep room where the teacher has to prepare lessons and materials for the classes as they come through. The next room to the left is actually the classroom for the Ag program. So basically classroom type of instruction can occur in there. And then Flex Classroom, which you're going to hear me refer to a few spaces as this is a room. It's a classroom that can be used for a variety of things, just providing sort of educational space for the campus to be used for whatever the needs are. However, there is a movable partition between the Ag classroom and this classroom. If they need a larger space, that is available to them by just moving that partition out of the way. Both of those spaces, again, have roll-up doors where large materials can go in and out of that courtyard between Sector A and Sector B. And it just be able to have students be able to go between the outdoors and the indoor classroom space quite easily. Next. Sector C, this is our culinary program here. It's again a fairly large space. It will have it will have exactly 7 student workstations around the periphery of the classroom there. In the center would be all of those sort of heat producing appliances and et cetera under a single range hood and fire suppression system. There's a demonstration table for the teacher in the space. There's also monitors throughout. So when there's demonstrations occurring, there can be a camera put on the demonstration and students can watch at their prep stations. There's also things like common prep areas. There's a scullery. Again, important part of running a culinary program is being able to clean. So there's a large scullery place. There's an office for the instructors in that area. And then there's also, again, a staff restroom at the end of the building.
This is the staff restroom. We moved it from Sector A to here, so it would be closer to the central point of the school. So that's the only restroom going in for staff there.
And we'll get there. We'll get there. We have one more sector to go. And in Sector D, you'll notice that there's some storage also for this program, which is just down, there it is, down and to the right, that gray area. There's dry storage and then also cold storage for the culinary program. Here we have 2 more flexible classrooms, again, can be used for a variety of needs, but they also have doors directly into the culinary space. So if there's classroom instruction that needs to occur for culinary, can happen in this space, and then the students can go up into the kitchen. Again, there's a movable partition between the two spaces. So if you want a larger space, particularly this could be useful as an event space. If there's something that's going on and you need a little bit larger space and you want to have the culinary program, for instance, cater this program, it's a very, very kind of easy thing to do. There are some large movable doors also to the courtyard to the south, which is the same courtyard that the cafeteria looks out onto. So all of a sudden you have a larger sort of gathering area that's available to the school in that location. And then to the far left are gender neutral restrooms. And so we are adding student restrooms out in this area. All right, now we can get into some pretty pictures. This is the fun part. So these are the 4 sectors, as you can see. 3 of them, A, B, and D, have slope roofs, south facing. You can notice on sector A, there's some solar panels that are indicated there. That orientation is quite intentional for when you want to put solar panels in those locations. You can see where the EVA, the emergency vehicle access, comes through that portion of the campus and exits out to Eddy Lane. There will be a gate in that location, so you will be able to control traffic during the school day and make sure people aren't just sort of randomly driving there. We are hiding all of the kind of equipment, rooftop equipment, behind some parapet walls you can see there. And then we have our courtyard spaces in between. So, next. Yes,
That's the wood shop.
which
And just for everyone, if you see these, we didn't do this the grade at which the stadium is not being taken out. I've already had many people, where's the restroom? It's just not there. It's not part of the rendering. All buildings need to be solar ready. No. This is a rendering of what the facility is supposed to look like. I do not believe we're adding solar.
there's no solar, but as Jenny mentioned, all of the buildings now are required to be solar ready. So this is just sort of an indication that the building could have solar panels on it. We actually meet all of the prescriptive requirements not to have solar in not needing battery storage and that sort of thing. Okay, next. And here's a little bit closer to the ground sort of view. Again, those are the tall windows to the north. We try to capture as much north light as possible, kind of like these windows. So you get daylight into the building without a lot of glare. Particularly important in a shop space where a lot of light and visibility is good. And then again, you can see the EVA going down to the right there. There's a variety of materials on the building, and you can begin to see them illustrated here. There's a mix of cement, fiberboard siding, fireproof, an important thing these days, which is the brown area. There's some corrugated metal area to the kind of flat roof portion to the right that holds kind of our service areas, our storage, and our, I think the IDF is in there. So, and that sort of thing. And then the next building down is plaster. And we do that just to differentiate some of these buildings so they don't all just look the same. It looks more like a village rather than a series of the same building, just sort of marching along. Next. This is sector B. Again, a change in material, a little bit change of look. There are some grades that we have to take care of in there. So there are going to be some stairs. There'll be some ramps that you can see down to the right. Again, lots of north light, lots of big windows that we can get in there. You can see the roll-up doors are sort of surrounded in a gray frame, which sort of connotates the larger doors there. Next. This is the culinary space, looking into the culinary space. The gender neutral restrooms are to the right. This is just a little bit of a covered area looking into the culinary. So students can, if they make something and they'd like to eat it outside, they can do that. They can go directly out into this area. But it also allows for a view in. So students walking by can see what's happening in that culinary space. And maybe attract some of them and get them interested in the program. And you can see here there's different paving materials, again, trying to make an interesting, lively pedestrian space. This is that collaboration room that we talked about. That's, I guess students are going to be dropping 30 backpacks in there and going through, but they're also going to be doing their safety classes in there, breakouts in there. I think they actually have to take some safety tests and things, and that happens in that space as well. You can see the corrugated material, which is a slightly different siding. There's the big roll-up door at the end of the red carpet there. So, so for, again, to allow for materials and projects to go in and out of there. This is the interior of one of those flex classrooms. And so, again, the board to my right here kind of shows all of the materials that will be going into this space. But you can see higher ceilings, pleasant kind of space to be in things like monitors and daylighting. Are really important to students being able to see instruction going on, but also have a well daylit space so they can do their work as well. Okay. A couple of things. So the estimate that we last did, we're at about, let's see if I can remember the numbers. About
23.9.
20, yes, 23.9. That includes what we call, or what our estimator calls, a market factor, because you never know what the market's going to be when this thing hits the street. If we get a lot of attention and we have a lot of bidders come to the project to bid it, that market factor may not come into play as much. But if it's a time that everybody's busy and it's hard to attract bidders, you could get a little bit of inflation. That's just the variability of the market when we go out to bid. So we just try to prepare for that. Okay. And then this is the schedule. Again, a little bit small, a little bit hard to read, but we are submitting to DSA, Division of the State Architect, on the 26th. And we'll be going, well, we'll be working with DSA for about 6 months to get through this process. Seems a little ridiculously long, but that's kind of the way that it is. We'll be bidding through the end of the year. And then somewhere around in January, February, we should have an apparent low bidder, or I think we're doing lease back on this, right? Right, lease back. So we should have our GMP, guaranteed maximum price, in place at that point. And so by March of next year, hopefully we'll be out there tearing buildings down and digging holes in the ground. And I think that's pretty much where we're at.
Questions, comments from the board?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I like the very different types of materials, so that it's not just the same boring building.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's always nice to build in a little visual interest. So. Yeah.
Any other questions, concerns from the community? We ready to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay,
Awesome. Thank you.
great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, consideration of amendment number 1 for the leaseback contract with Wright Contracting LLC for Annalee High School HVAC and roofing projects Phase 2, cafeteria building AA29, industrial arts building AA30, and East Wing building AA32. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jenny.
Well, after the April 24th board meeting, when you awarded the initial contract to Wright for project AA27 for the main building, we received DSA approval for the 3 projects we're presenting to you tonight for the East Wing, the cafeteria, and the industrial arts building for the roof replacement and HVAC replacement. This is their amendment to their existing contract, and we're looking for approval of that tonight. As you can see, if you've been on our campus, construction is already commenced on all of these. We're allowed to do that as part of the leaseback contract. So it's almost like you're ratifying this tonight. happy to answer questions.
Any questions or concerns from the board? No? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Okay. Consideration of approval of amendment to QKA consultant contract for project temporary housing portables at Annalee High School. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
At the May 8th board meeting, you awarded a consultant contract so that we could proceed forward with temporary housing at the Annalee campus. Well, as part of our process of moving that project forward, because of the amount of buildings that we're adding, we're no longer qualified for what they call an over-the-counter approval. So we'll have to go through a full DSA review, which means that they'll be looking at our restroom count. So we're prepared to add the scope of adding additional restrooms into this project, which were not included in their original proposal. So tonight we're presenting an amendment to that and happy to answer questions.
Questions or concerns from the board?
What was inside, or what is inside the old snack bar, and is it defunct? Could it be used for anything, or is it so old and unused for so long that it's
No,
not useful?
it's currently being used as the closet, and I think I detailed that in my.
But could it be a snack bar again, I guess is my question. Could food be served out of it?
Food could currently be served out of it, but considering that the use hasn't been that for multiple years, I think that's why it was determined that the closet might be ideal. The reason that location was advantageous to us is because we want to share the wet wall from the boys' restroom to where the new restrooms would be. It also, I think, helps us resolve a problem with restrooms across the campus, and it would be our first set of gender neutral restrooms, even though it's at the Student Services Center. We felt that that was a good investment into our existing brick and mortar. We did a cost benefit analysis to bringing on portable restrooms, and it's equivalent. And so anytime it's about, we're guesstimating that just the restrooms alone will be about $500,000. We do have money within the project budget to do that. It would also equally be about $500,000 to bring in temporary, I call them portable restrooms, like portable classrooms. And so we felt that the better recommendation to you guys would be to make the investment in our existing brick and mortar facilities. And we can always revive a snack bar or some type of temporary snack bar. We actually have a lot of covered area on that campus in comparison to the other campus. So yes, technically speaking, to answer your question, it can be rehabbed. We saw it as an opportunity to maximize a bathroom in that location.
No, that makes good sense, and it's good use of the space.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I know. I heard that.
We got to upgrade.
We're getting an upgrade. Okay. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Okay. Consideration of approval of public art request for Laguna High School.
So I'm really just happy to answer questions regarding this. I think I detailed out pretty clearly that this is also a ratification. The students worked really hard to have the peace poles assembled and installed, and we wanted to honor that they would be put up prior to graduation. But consistent with our board policy, we wanted to recognize that these should be approved in case which time they may need to be taken down or relocated. The school site obviously supports this as well as the district. So I'm happy to answer questions, but always nice to bring forward student-driven projects and art and display it on our campus in a permanent way.
Any questions or concerns?
You need to make a motion.
Yeah, I know. I
Oh,
forgot
whoops,
that
sorry.
part.
Oh, I did it too.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second. So now any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I got to do that one time at least every board meeting, don't I? Yeah, after it gets past 9 o'clock, the likelihood of it grows considerably. All right, education services. Public hearing regarding the local control accountability plan for 2024 is now open.
Do it up. So you open that item. I've got Nancy Williams who'd love to speak on behalf of the Mindful Movement course. And since it was the last Ed Services item, I was hoping we could bump that up. But let's do.
We can do that
We can
now.
do that now?
Okay, so we're moving up okay. We're gonna bump up number 9. Okay. So consideration of approval of new course Mindful Movement. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay, go right ahead.
First, I'd like to acknowledge that there is a typo in the board item in which when I copy things over for new courses, I didn't edit. So the current consideration language there is referencing the new science course that we approved. That's my oversight. So love to hear Nancy talk about the course and what they hope to accomplish, but I just did want to acknowledge that in case anybody noticed that in that agenda item. So
Yeah, we did.
yep.
Thank you. Thank you for bumping me up. I appreciate that. This is a course, not the name Mindful Movement, but this is something that has been on my mind and my colleague Earl Pasamonte for years. We have wanted a class of PE that helps the kid that just can't, be in a regular PE class, whether it's physical, emotional, mentally. And finally, we've had this opportunity to maybe cohort with the wellness class. And I feel for these kids that just cannot cope. And I could tell you story after story from just the last few years where they just want to crawl out of their skin, or the noise of our volleyball unit, and they look at me with panic, and I don't know what to, I have 45 to 50 kids in every class. It's hard to cater to their specific needs. So with, speaking with Chuck and Chris and Jane Mays and my colleague, Chris Elsie, we have put together what we think is a really good opportunity for small class of students that can learn to cope. It's not just about exercise. It's really about movement. There's been a whole shift in PE in general. It's not about how fast can you run the mile or how many push-ups can you do. It's really about the importance of movement for your mind and body. And we feel Mindful Movement can provide students with coping skills. And it's not just a yoga class. You can't just bust out in a yoga practice when you're struggling. You need to learn breathing techniques. We all are in situations where we can't just check out. And so we think in a small group setting, we can prepare kids for the next step. That we want this to be a temporary class. We don't want them in this for 4 years. We want them to learn how to thrive in a bigger setting, in a more realistic setting. And so we put a lot of thought and a lot of effort, and we're emotionally invested in this class already. And we're really hoping that that you guys will approve this, because we really think this is a good opportunity for our kids that just struggle.
Thank you. We really appreciate your input, and I, for one, think it's a wonderful idea and really kind of goes along with our need to address all kinds of learners and all kinds of students. So thank you very much. Any other questions or concerns?
I just wanted to make a comment too, really along those same lines, Nancy. Thank you so much, because we all know that not everybody is your, a number one sportsman, and not everybody's body can move the way that, that those sports people can. And it can be very debilitating for people mentally, even more than physically, because they feel so out of place and, so concerned about body image and that sort of thing. And I think this is just such an awesome opportunity for kids to be able to have that space for meditation, for yoga, for whatever that might be for them, to learn how to function better in a system that doesn't want them to do that. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
Any other questions or concerns?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question, well, a comment and a question. So I commend you for bringing this forward. It really seems to fill a need, and you've identified students for it. But in hearing you describe it, honestly, these are things that are great life skills for anybody, even if they are athletic. So my question is, what's the capacity for this? Is it one section? Like, how many kids are going to be able to do this? Do you hope for it to grow?
Ideally, it would be great to not grow, because we want to try to equip these kids with the necessary skills to go and be in, in a real life situation. We would like to keep it at the same enrollment, like wellness, at no larger than 22. Then you're getting into spacing issues. We want to share Jolene Johnson's dance room. We feel like that's an appropriate space. So we're just going to start, we're asking for one section
One section
right now.
Mhm.
We would love to keep it small, just because that's part of these kids' struggle, is being in larger environments. And, also, Jeannie, to kind of add on to what you were saying, we have a lot of medically fragile kids. And it's not just about body image and just anxiety and stressors. There's a lot of kids just that physically, medically can't do stuff. And so they shouldn't have to compete and try to keep up in a regular PE class. So
Got a lot of asthmatics these days, more than
just
you know.
and just random stuff that just, their diagnoses that are just, things I've never heard of before. And it just keeps them from being able to do, general physical movements.
Just a little comment. I think this is probably something, Chris, that Rotary could really get behind. So if equipment is needed, I would really suggest that you put in for a Rotary grant. I know that, like, they really got behind the closet, and it just seems like a real program Rotary would support. So just a little encouragement there. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for waiting.
All right. Are we ready for the public hearing? All right. Public hearing is now open regarding the local control accountability plan for 2024, 2027.
So I'm going to walk you through some slides, some familiar, and those of you who are a part of our educational partner engagement committee, you'll notice them as well. So Jenny, can you take me to slide number 2, please? So there are 3 phases of the strategic planning and overall process for building the local control accountability plan. In phase 1, you're collecting input, you're gathering data, you form your committee, and we performed our root cause analysis, which allows us to look at some of the conditions that inhibit and prohibit students from accessing the curriculum and being successful. In phase 2, you're revisiting your mission and your values, you're defining your priorities, and you're developing your goals. In phase 3, you're starting to identify actions, you're assigning metrics, you're allocating funds and resources, continuing to collect input throughout the entire process, and you're revising and refining. In prior years, and I've said this before, the district's LCAP process was more based on compliance, not strategic planning. So some districts look at the supplemental funding that you get for your unduplicated student populations. And for us, that's 1.5 million. And you build your LCAP that reflects the program and staffing and initiatives that support that group. It's very narrow. It's not reflective of the district's overall vision or strategic plan. We wanted to shift that. Coming into this year, we had an opportunity to build a new 3-year plan. So as with prior practices, we developed a widely diverse educational partner committee. We believe that we expanded beyond the district's past practices in terms of the number of different representatives that joined that committee. Can you take me to the next slide? I think it's important to note that many folks that I've talked to, including the Sonoma County Office of Education rep that's assigned to our district to support the district's LCAP development, but also our eligibility for differentiated assistance. When they met with our team, they literally asked me the question, do you even want me to present? Because your district is way ahead of the rest that I work with. So how did we go above and beyond the state's requirement to engage educational partners and to go through a robust process? So we established, as I mentioned, our widely represented educational partner committee, which included representatives from West Sonoma County Teachers Association, CSEA, a board member, district administration, parents and students. We met 6 times throughout the 24-25 year, including the last meeting, which I believe was May 30th, to look at the draft LCAP, continue to solicit input, listen to our ed partner group, make sure that they understood how metrics are developed. Unfortunately, I was sick and unable to attend that, but the team stepped up, and I want to thank Chuck for kind of leading the facilitation of that meeting. He does a great job with this stuff. This is stuff that he's done in his capacity at SCO. But we truly engage in a strategic planning process. And as I mentioned, we redefined and reimagined the district mission statement, which I'll get to in one of the next slides. Next slide, please, Jenny. So we kept coming back to the root cause analysis. What are some of the conditions that prevent students from being successful? Things that are outside the scope of the educational community, right? Personal problems, issues with their parents, issues with transportation, anxiety, language barriers. Some of those things were defined, discussed, and then the process was to ensure that we invest in program staffing and initiatives to put resources behind supporting those conditions that prohibit kids from being successful. We noted when I did the mid-cycle report that while our dashboard performance is really, really good in some respects, we still have a lot of work to do. And one of the areas we talked a lot about was how we can improve our college and career readiness. We know we have to address our suspension rate, which I think our sites have done an incredible job of in developing that restorative culture and continuing that work around DEI and alternative means to suspension and expulsion. I think we've shifted our processes. We've created reentry processes. We really want opportunities that emerge for accountability when students make poor choices, but turn that into an educational learning opportunity. Through this, we identified where certain subgroups of students haven't been successful. And that's where we focused our efforts and reimagining how we serve kids with an equity lens. And I think a lot of that's also been driven from how our district has changed dramatically over the last 5 years through consolidation, post-pandemic. We talked earlier about all of the different inter-district students that we have coming from many, many different communities, socioeconomic backgrounds, different feeder schools, so truly a melting pot. We don't get to choose the students who show up, but we got to serve them. So that's what we tried to really talk about and engage with our ed partner committee in terms of how we developed our goals. Next slide, please. So we talked about this early on through the root cause analysis. We identified the need to focus on equity. You know, if you look at those subgroups, you can see where certain subgroups don't perform as well as other subgroups. So you've seen this slide, you've heard me discuss. I think when I did the mid-year report, I really hammered equity and where those gaps in achievement lie. Next slide, please. This was the new mission statement that we landed on. And, you know, we talked a lot with not only the leadership team, the educational partner committee, labor partners, before Gloria launched the year in review publication, which I thought was really well done. I had some further conversations, and I talked to Lily and I talked to Bridget, and, you know, to ensure that they had an opportunity to really feel good, get behind this and champion the, you know, the minor tweaks from our prior mission statement that really focused on student achievement, right? But it left student achievement for all out. And I think because we've changed so dramatically and the needs of our students have changed, that really informed and inspired the new strategic plan, and which really has a focus on equity. And again, I was so happy that I got some really positive feedback, and the teacher that emailed me thanking us for the HVAC. So thank you, board. I thought that was really cool. But mentioned that they put this on their whiteboard before they left for summer so that they can come back and kick off the year with that inspiration and how we're shifting what Annalee looks like, how we serve these kids. Next slide, please. So our prior LCAP had 3 goals, many actions. It was really, it was too narrow. So we wanted to broaden our goals and broaden our actions, because part of building an LCAP that reflects the district's strategic plan and really reflects the majority of the district's $30+ million budget rather than 1.5 million, we had to keep it really high level. And it, you know, if you've gone through the LCAP and you've looked at the expenditure tables, we've really focused on staffing, because staffing drives program. And we've invested in, you know, the existing programs and staffing that we had prior, but we identified areas where we needed to improve, like the vice principal, like an additional family engagement facilitator, an additional paraprofessional, so that we have one-to-one para case manager teams, and that para and that case manager can really get to know that max of 28 students that they manage in terms of supporting their IEPs and access to educational program. We know we have a lot of bilingual families, and with one district family engagement facilitator, we just weren't reaching enough families. We think that investing in that additional person can not only help with outreach and support for Spanish-speaking families, but all families, so we can improve our attendance and decrease our chronic absenteeism rates. So we went from those 3 goals, which were improving conditions of learning, school climate and engagement, promote course access and student success, improve college and career readiness through the implementation of the POG, to these 2 overarching goals. And you'll see how the goals are broken down in terms of which expenditures have gone into what. Goal 1, provide a responsive, evidence-based, multi-tiered systems of support to maximize student achievement, foster authentic student and family engagement, and create a positive school climate. Goal 2, strengthen innovative, equitable opportunities for academic rigor, career preparation, and personal development, so all students successfully attain the characteristics of a portrait of a graduate. Again, we intend to relaunch the portrait, look for ways to ensure that that's a part of how we talk, reflects in our educational program, and what we want for our students. A different approach to viewing multi-tiered systems of supports are reflected in the LCAP. We're now recognizing our Tier 1 MTSS core educational program as all of our educational program. When people think of MTSS, they mainly think of Tier 2 and Tier 3, those interventions that support students when they're struggling. But MTSS, if you look at it differently, is your entire educational program. Tier 1 is everything we do, from AP courses, CTE courses, all of our other academic program. And Tier 2 and Tier 3 start to get into where the kids really struggle, those academic support programs, the wellness classes, the SPED programs, all of those things that help lift up those students who may not have opportunities like other students. Next slide, please. So goal one, you've got your MTSS core educational program. Now, I know a question came up because that's not something that the district's used to thinking in terms of what MTSS is. Again, most people think of those tier 2 and tier 3 initiatives. We wanted to identify, and that's where the majority of the money is inputted in the expenditure tables. That's our core educational program district-wide, right? And then your MTSS academic intervention and support systems are as it reads. That's your tier 2. Your MTSS social and emotional support systems, that is how it reads. That's your tier 3. So we thought that was a really good way to identify that MTSS isn't just about when students are struggling. It's all the time. It should be. Professional development and professional learning support. That's goal one. I think goal one continues into the next slide, please. ELL program, special education program, and transportation. Next slide, please. Goal 2, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Strong commitment to that work. Innovative community school programs. That's what we want to build on the, under the Laguna umbrella. All alternative ed. It's not just about continuation. It's about serving the different type of learners that we see emerging in our communities today. The new school model. That's the work around changing the mindset of how we provide instruction. Implementing the integrated cohorting model to create engaging learning communities. Again, it's just about being interesting to all students, finding ways to make them feel engaged, make them want to show up and want to listen and collaborate with their peers and learn from their teacher.
And that's the work that Nicole's doing.
And that work includes a coaching model that is led by Anita and Nicole. And they're working individually with veteran and new teachers alike to look at standards-based grading, diversity and equity in the classroom, how we create positive conditions of learning, how we assess what the needs are of the students, how we really read the room, right? What are these kids, what do these kids need right now? And am I giving them what they need with the type of instruction that I'm delivering? I think it's catching fire. They're starting to build more capacity. I love that there's interest from both the veteran and new teachers alike, but that's a volunteer and optional deal, right? But they've expanded their program and now they've empowered other teachers to continue working with other teachers. So it's kind of a domino effect, and we're really proud of that. The Strong Workforce Program, that will support our college and career readiness indicator and our CTE pathway completion percentages, opportunities for work-based learning, all of the things that drive our CTE programs and what the outcomes that we aspire for our kids. Technology, we've invested in a one-to-one initiative prior to my time. We have to look at how we can sustain that, evolve that if needed, like with new program, with the West County Eye Academy. We're going to provide hotspots for those kids if they request them. That's a new expenditure that we're going to have to take on. We previously paid for all of our one-to-one Chromebooks and devices through the bond measure, and we've had to rethink how we can sustain that now that those bond monies are earmarked for these amazing projects. Next slide, please. Some metrics to note. So when you're creating your 3-year target, you're really looking at, okay, what was your baseline? Where were your metrics in current year? And there's a couple ways to look at this, but we felt that we wanted to be aspirational and we wanted to be equitable with the outcomes that we expect in year 3. Now, mind you, you know how this process works. Much like the budget process, you're refining and revising as you go through. So while we set the 3-year target rate at what we feel is aspirational and equitable, we're going to revisit that. What do the year 2 metrics look like? Do we need to adjust? Is that attainable? And so what you're looking at here is pretty self-explanatory until you get down to long-term English learners and foster students. So what you have there is that we have such a small margin that it's not relevant in terms of statistics. But what we hope is that if those numbers increase, that they would fall to 40% and 80% respectively, if there were enough students to equal into a percentage. When you have those smaller numbers, that's how you reflect it with your metrics. So that's ELA statewide assessment, and that's what we hope for our students, and that's where they're currently at.
So our goal is the state average? That
Our
was one
goal
of-
is above state average.
What is state average?
That's a great question, and I have that answer prepared for you because Dan looked it up for me today while I was working. Thank you, Dan. The statewide average is 46.7% for ELA. For math, it's 34.6, and for science, it's 29.9.
You just say that again. I didn't have my pen in the right. place.
46.7 for ELA. This is high school now.
Yeah.
34.6 for math, 29.95 for science.
Thank you.
And when, we presented the dashboard results, we were really, really proud of the increases that we saw, but we still have more work to do, especially with the students we've identified through root cause analysis that have those additional barriers to success. Next slide, please. Connectedness to school. So we could throw out 1 million surveys throughout the year, and as you all know, people get survey fatigue. This district is invested in Youth Truth. One of the first cohorts of districts to engage in Youth Truth. And I know that because when we started in Cloverdale, I was part of that as well. And we used to collaborate with Tony in the West County District at that time. SCO would bring the early adopters together. So I believe we're running on 6 years of data now, if I'm correct. But this is our baseline to really measure how our people feel, the students, the staff, and the families. So we talked a lot about Youth Truth. We leveraged Youth Truth to drive those conversations through the LCAP engagement process. So baseline, and then 3-year target. So we want to see students feel as though they try to do their best at school by creating new engaging opportunities, by shifting the way that we provide instruction, by creating those integrated cohorts, by creating more dynamic and different educational program. Parent, right? We want that to increase to 75%. So from 77 student survey, and this is just a snapshot of some questions that we thought were powerful. So there's where they are and there's where we hope to be. Right? Again, we'll look at year 1, baseline, compare and contrast. Did we make growth? Do we need to adjust the year 3 expected outcomes? That'll be part of our process when we revise it going into year 1. We'll have our mid-year report next February, and then we'll be working on revising and fulfilling that LCAP process year 1, year 2, year 3. And then we'll be back to the drawing board, much like the budget cycle. So really excited. I've learned a lot working with Shella Seaton, our LCAP consultant, and also from our teams. And we're really fortunate that we've got some LCAP experts on the leadership team now. When I first was hired, Dan was our point person for LCAP, and he helped as we had interim soups and the new soup coming in, helped us kind of tighten that up and get that ready to go, and ultimately was part of the team at SCO that reviewed our LCAP. And then this was what Chuck has done for many, many years. So, working closely with our leadership teams and allowing them to be a part of building, the processes and leading some of those conversations has been really helpful for me to learn. Next slide, please. Parent input and decision-making. Again, this is referencing Youth Truth. From 28%, we're hoping to get to at least 50%. And people may ask, well, how do you come up with that percentage? I think that you're trying to be aspirational, but also realistic. And then again, you got to look at where you're at from year 1 to year 2. And if you need to change those expected or hopeful outcomes, then you make those adjustments. Next slide. So the next step, obviously, is take some questions from the board. This is public hearing, so we want to hear from anybody that's in the audience if you have questions or input. And then we have an opportunity to make any revisions if necessary, and then bring it back for budget, LCAP and budget adoption together on June 20th.
Questions, concerns from the board?
Yeah, thank you. This is going to be a really good tool. I like the way it's come together, and I have some questions and comments. During one of the last Ed Partners meeting, Greg shared with us the MTSS pyramid that they use at Laguna. But his understanding was that the district or in whole or Annalee had a different one.
I have the one that Annalee has been using.
I would like to see that, and maybe even that would be a useful thing. I don't know if there's a place to put it in here, probably not.
Not in the recap, but I
But
can put it in the slide deck when I present
I
the
think-
final.
I
Okay.
think that would be really
Yeah.
useful because it names the programs and the things that they do. I think it really drives home what it is to people that aren't used to the lingo.
Yeah, I've been working on compiling, the information that you requested, and I just didn't have an opportunity to share it with the full board, but I was prepared to talk about it today. But Chuck did send me a PDF. I haven't seen it side by side with what Laguna's using,
Mhm.
but Chuck said that that was what they were using when he got here. And, I've credited Laura a ton. She's been a champion in building our wellness programs and building up our MTSS. And, she's really focused on tier 2 and tier 3. And now that we're under the understanding that, tier 1 is everything and all early and often, we want to talk about MTSS all the time, right? And so I think that that's the next iteration of what Laura's built and established. But she gave us a great platform and place to continue to go. So
Because that is our role,
Mhm.
systems of support, scaffolding,
Mhm.
and, not looking at what students can't do, but what can we do to help them do it? And that's what that pyramid shows, and it gives options because it's not always the same thing. Even if it's the same root cause or the same issue, the answer for a particular human is going to be different. And so, and that's what happens when we work with humans. So having all of those different choices in a visual form, I think would be really nice. I mean, I know the staff is already using it, but I think just to let us
And
understand it a little
other-
bit more.
The other component that complements the LCAP are site council.
Thank you, guys.
Site council, right? So prior to my time, and I believe it was during COVID that the district, obviously didn't conduct their site council processes for obvious reasons, but didn't pick it back up. And that was probably lost in consolidation and leadership changes. So Greg brought his site council back last year and started that process. Chuck had to build his team and begin that process throughout this year.
Mhm.
I gave the principals the night off tonight.
Mhm.
They're coming back on the 26th and they're going to present their whole principals report will be their work around developing their site council.
Oh,
I wanted
good.
to
I
share
was
that.
curious about that.
Pulls the night off.
I gave them the night off. You just said no reports.
Okay.
So I noticed
Still gonna have them come.
in the engagement sector,
Uh-huh.
site council is mentioned, and I had heard site council is getting going again, but we haven't seen minutes or anything like that. So I was curious. That was one of the questions that I don't know if I was going to bring it up, but it was one of the questions I had, because site council is listed, and even, I mean, in the past when I was an observer, LCAP would say went to site council when there was no site council.
Well,
So
we've tried to be diligent about
yeah.
fixing that.
So
And
I'm like, site
yeah,
council,
I'm
it's in there
excited for them
again.
to come and share with you how that's gone. I mean, I know based on my conversations that, site council has really allowed Chuck to kind of feel like his way around being the principal here. Greg going into year 2 really started to engage the community schools planning process with his site council, since that whole initiative really has to look at where the higher density population of unduplicated students are. So we've leveraged it, and I want to make sure that that's transparent.
Mhm.
And I think it's just going to get better in year 2 for Chuck, year 3 for Greg.
Yeah. And I think that will really help with engagement because, and I've mentioned this before, I mean, I see that there's been a lot of really robust engagement from teachers, staff, admin, and these are all people who know education and can speak the speak. But it really felt in the Ed Partners meetings that it wasn't as robust. It felt like people weren't really exactly sure why they were there, and out in the community, parents and students were like, LCAP, what is that happening? I haven't heard anything about it. And so I really feel like that's something that moving forward in year 2, when we look to redo, because this is a big lift to create a whole thing. Next year, it will be a refining. And, we look at root causes and come up with solutions, but sometimes we can't think outside the box until we hear it from the person who's experiencing it. They might come up with ideas that we never would have thought of. And you need volume for that. You don't just need like a token person there that, yes, we'll check the box. Somebody of that demographic was represented.
Well, Debbie, I do want to acknowledge that I don't think we're giving our Ed Partner Committee enough credit. So think about who represented there, right? You had Ann Peterson, who teaches the SOAR class. And
I'm
academic
parents and students,
I
only
understand
those
that.
sectors. Yeah.
But if I may, you had people that have engaged closely with the greater parent community
Mhm.
in our leaders, in Laura.
Mhm.
You have Anita, who's been really, really close to students and staff in her work.
Right.
You had Heidi, really, really close to student staff and the greater community
Oh, right.
through her work. So I understand, what you're getting at, and that a lot of people in every school community don't know what LCAP is or what it represents.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond your educational partner committee, much like with DEI, how we had our folks solicit the framework to their constituents and the people that they represent. That happened, and it happened, I think, at a deeper level than even we were all aware through that process.
Mhm.
But I do think that there are opportunities to further engage.
Yeah, that's
cast
all
a
I'm
wider
saying.
net,
Mhm.
but also a lot of the data that's captured, and that's why I wanted to make sure to reference survey fatigue. We're going to hang our hat on youth truth. We need to do something with that data, and we didn't know that that data is going to drive these processes.
Yeah.
And that's capturing a wide voice. And the questions that we ask in youth truth are directly reflective of the things that we build into the LCAP. So I think we have a really, really broad net of information and input. But that educational partner committee is probably larger than even our consultant would recommend. I do think that we need more consistent or even a rotating consistent group of students and parents so that we have more diverse perspectives and can
Right.
spread the word more.
Yeah, sort of like an early on recruitment process. So there's a pool of interested people.
We tried that at showcase night. I had Gloria create that
Yeah.
infographic QR code. We had it at every table and we didn't get any responses. So
Yeah.
I'm open for
Yeah.
other ideas, and
Yeah.
we will expand our outreach.
And
as
it
much
won't
as
be
we
as
can.
much, it'll be a different process
Right.
next year because you'll already have, so I'm, it's not really a complaint. It's more, I've seen this process unfold. And when I read that, part of the engagement process with parents and students was the Youth Truth Survey, that struck me as a little bit odd because it's definitely good data that we're using to create the LCAP, but I wouldn't say that that was part of a community engagement process specifically around the
I
LCAP.
think our team would disagree. I shot your question to Chuck to get his insights, and what he wrote back was all our youth truth data that included all of our ed partners was relied upon heavily in all stages of the LCAP development process. Lots of public meetings were held. He didn't agree with adding another survey, but the youth truth gives us a lot of very high quality data to work with. And we worked with it quite a bit to inform LCAP development. So, we have to understand, are we going to hang our hat on youth truth as our number one source of data collection in terms of how our community feels? I think so.
Yeah, and it's good data.
Okay, wait, due to the late hour, could we
Hmm.
move
Yeah.
along with questions?
Yes.
Do you have any other
So
questions?
the other thing, if you can go back to page 6, the mission statement. At the Ed Partners meeting, some people, we talked about grammar or punctuation. And it seemed, and I just want to see what you all think too, because it didn't change. They took it down, the notes.
It didn't change in the slide deck. It changed in the LCAP because I got that feedback.
Okay, so
And
there's
we
no
got rid of
commas
the,
in it anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Page.
We removed
I don't have
of
that
the
one printed.
commas.
Yeah, because the commas just made it sound. And then in terms of the mission statement, it's a good mission statement. I think it would have been a lot more powerful if there was a wider process in creating it. I think, a bunch of people got together and came up with something that sounds really great. But I think one of the strengths of redoing a mission statement is everybody buying into it and feeling ownership of it. And that's the piece that I don't know if it's going to come out. Now, we've created one. It sounds good. It's fine. But is it just?
I think our team, they did that, right? And I think that's why I got so much good feedback. And that's also why before I let Gloria launch that article, hey, Lily, how you feeling about this? Have you heard this? They represent their unions. Bridget loved it.
Yeah.
Lily loved it. Great.
Yeah,
And
it's a good mission statement. I just
don't know how else we could have expanded that engagement. So I'm open to suggestions.
it's
Okay, we got to move on. I'm gonna push it here because it's almost
Got
10
this.
o'clock and I'm not voting again for an extension. So let's go. Any other comments? Okay. Public hearing is closed. Consideration of approval of recommended revisions from CSBA March 2024 updates for policies and regulations. Can I have a motion?
I'll move.
Second,
Second.
questions, concerns?
Second read.
Okay, ready to vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. First reading of revisions to Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 6146.1 graduation requirement. Any questions, concerns from the board, or who's going to present, or?
So this is the first read. We received a lot of input from families that, we've got some exceptional students. I think we all recognize that. And I think that as we evolve our educational program, we needed a process for early graduation request. The sites used to do this really unbeknownst to the board or district. They made, internal decisions. At the time that I assumed this post, the district was experiencing coming out of that consolidation, concerns about ongoing enrollments. So, and with a lack of process, we made the decision to say, cease for now. Now that we've increased enrollments and I've gotten a chance to really have good, meaningful conversations with families and students that would see this as value for their students' post-secondary goals, we believe that it's important to provide a mechanism for this, but have a clear process that's backed by policy. So the revisions to this policy are down at the bottom. It's clearly articulated what the process is, what that looks like. And credit to Chuck and Omar for taking Annalie's old request process, refining that and giving us some baseline for processes and policies. So that's what you're looking at today. So we'll bring it back for the second read in June 26th.
Any questions, concerns? Are we on number 4?
Yeah, we're moving to 4.
Okay. First reading of recommended revisions to Exhibit 5145.6E1, parent guardian notifications from CSBA October 2023 update.
So this is with regard to the PANs. It came in the October updates, but obviously wasn't going to reflect those changes until the upcoming year, which, now going into 2024-25, we've made the revisions and additions, if any, to the PANs to reflect this new policy. So this is a first read there. Karen's worked really, really hard on this. So I want to give her credit for that.
Any questions or concerns? Okay. First reading of proposed revisions to Exhibit 113-E3 district and school websites from CSBA October updates.
Same thing here. This came in October as we were working through our initiative to overhaul our websites. Credit to Jenny and the team and Gloria for making sure that all of the appropriate information was posted as required by this policy. So we had to work with some folks at the site in different capacities, but now we're ready to go for the upcoming school year. First read, second read, next meeting.
Questions, concerns? Okay, consideration of approval of proposed new supplementary textbook for AP language and composition. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Good.
Do we have anything we need to say about that? Okay, any
Curriculum.
questions or concerns? All those in favor?
I
Aye,
have a
opposed?
question.
I'm sorry, you did have a
I
question?
did have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you. Go ahead.
Actually, and this question actually applies to the next three. And my question is, whether the DEI committee had a chance to review these, or how we've ensured that, this new curriculum meets the FAIR Act, particularly like contributions of diverse groups, because we mentioned that in the resolution we recently passed, that all of our curriculum does.
AP, is governed by College Board, which dictates curriculum and curriculum materials. So, feel good about this. And then obviously the curriculum for social studies, those are well-known, textbooks. I've seen History Alive in every district that I've been a part of. So I'm very, very comfortable with that curriculum. That's New World, Government, Econ, and US. And then the science curriculum aligns with the new course that the science team created, which is A through G approved, also governed by College Board. So that's a well-vetted textbook. So,
So we're just sort of assuming that, like, is there any vetting process to make sure?
College Board and these vendors create curriculum across many, many districts. That's why I'm saying I've seen these textbooks, right? I've seen this novel. So I think that it's been vetted. I don't know that that's the function of the DEI committee. The function of the DEI committee has been to look at building equity and looking at culturally responsive curriculum. And that's been also part of Anita's role and Nicole's role in working with their teachers. So I'm not concerned here. I feel like these have been vetted. Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Consideration of approval of proposed new textbook for social studies, world history, government, and econ.
And US.
And US.
Got to lead it from
Thank
the
you.
title. That's my fault. again.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions, concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consideration of approval of proposed new text for science. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Any questions, concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Human Resources, consideration of approval of monthly personnel report. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Yeah.
Okay, I just have one addition to the report that was submitted. We did hire an academic support teacher, and his name is Eric Noonian, and he will be starting on August 12th.
All 3 math C sets for academic support. And that was what when we revised the posting, we wanted to focus on math and English credentials first and foremost, then the other core credentials. And this individual is coming into teaching as a new career, but has been a long time high-end math tutor in Marin County. And I know that when Chuck was done with references, his current employer said that he can teach math to any level. And having somebody like that in the academic support classes will allow our counselors to steer students into those sections that really need that math support. So thanks to Leslie, we talked about that and looking at doubling down on math sections, not offering the math support elective, but diverting that back into the academic support to have more focus on math. So we're really excited to see what this new teacher can do on our campus.
Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Consideration of approval of revisions to auxiliary salary schedule. Can I have a motion? Second?
The consortium board had approved increasing the hourly rate for a summer school speech and language therapist when they do assessments only to $60 an hour rather than $55 an hour for the regular time that they're actually providing direct services. So that's reflected on the auxiliary salary schedule, and that's noted in bold font for you.
Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Consideration of approval of memorandum of understanding between West County Teachers Association and West Sonoma County Union High School District. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, the district entered into 3 MOUs with the teachers union. The first one is a 1.2 FTE assignment for Zach Morris, who is a teacher in the PEP class. The other one is a 1.2 FTE assignment for Jane Mays, so she can teach that section of wellness. And the last one is an agreement to increase the drama fall 2024 and spring 24 stipend. It increased from 46.62 to 55.94 for each semester. And Lily Borgeson is the teacher that is going to be receiving that stipend.
Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Consideration of approval of revisions to payroll technician job description. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It was Jeannie. Okay. Andrew and I sat down with Jennifer Guerrero, who is our payroll technician, and we made several revisions to the job description, which was noted in bold font and strikeouts in the job description that we presented. We also changed the title of her position.
Any questions, concerns? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Consideration of approval of revisions to administrative assistant job description title. Can I have a motion? And second?
Okay, so we did make some revisions to Karen's job description. One of them was the title of the position, but we actually made some adjustments to the job description under the essential duties. And those are all noted in bold font and strikeouts as well.
Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Consideration of approval of a revised salary schedule for classified and certificated management. Can I have a motion?
Oh, I think we're on consideration of approval of revised salary schedules for supervisory and confidential employees.
Oh, I'm crossing them out too quick.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mia. Consideration of approval of revised salary schedule for supervisory and confidential employee group. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay.
Okay, so the salary schedules for both of these groups are presented. And if you noted from a previous salary schedule, we had them all on the same salary schedule. We have separated them out. Supervisory is considered exempt. So you'll see that their salary is based on an annual salary. If you look at the confidential salary schedule, that is listed as an hourly rate, and that is the confidential employees are entitled to overtime or comp time. That was the difference between the two and why we separated them out.
Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Consideration of approval of revised salary schedule for classified and certificated management. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
The revised salary schedule was presented, and there aren't any changes to it unless any of the trustees have any questions.
Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Consideration of approval of resolution number 16 June 2024 to designate specified position chief business official as senior management of the classified service.
Chris is going to be presenting this item.
I'm sorry? I know that. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
So this is really common in many districts in which the CBO is designated as senior management of the classified service. It then prohibits the position from falling back into another classified position, as some of the classified management positions have had those rights in prior years without this resolution. Really recognizes the CBO, the position and what it means to the district. Andrew, if you have anything else that you'd like to add to that, I know that folks that we've talked to, including, CBOs and leaders in other districts, and even our attorneys were surprised that the district hadn't adopted such resolution. And it's more common than you think, but really not something that gets a lot of noteworthy conversations. But we felt it was appropriate to acknowledge that position and the work that Andrew's done establishing himself as our CBO.
Any questions or concerns?
Well deserved.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Consideration of approval of salary schedule for chief business official office. I kept my thing off, so I got to read it on here. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay.
Okay, the salary schedule is presented. There are 3 steps on this salary schedule. It was presented in the board packet. I can answer any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Consideration of approval of employment contract for Andrew Solis, Chief Business Official for 2024. Okay, what does that date say?
25.
20, okay, okay. 2025. Yeah, I'm on the right
But
thing.
the title obviously doesn't reflect the multi-year agreement, right?
Right,
in the
that's what
item,
it is.
so.
Okay, I need a motion first. Need a motion?
I move with the addendum that it's a 2024 to 2027.
And I need a second.
Second.
Okay.
Okay. For the audience, if you'd like a copy of the contract, it's over here on the table. And this was finalized today. So I'm going to read out that this is an agreement that's effective July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2027. Andrew will be placed on step 1 of the new salary schedule, which is $180,530. He will also receive the $2,000 annual stipend for a master's degree. The fringe benefits and expenses, the medical, dental, and vision benefits are the same as they have been in the past. If it's an employee only, there's no contribution. If it's an employee plus 1 or plus a family, there's a 15% contribution on the part of the employee, on the part of Andrew. And then the district will cover the premium for the dental and vision benefits. Andrew will also receive, this was the same, it's a carryover, a $25,000 life insurance policy that the district will pay for. And the district will also pay for the cost of a membership to CASBO, and he'll receive $100 a month for a car allowance, and for his cell phone is also $100 a month. He will have a work year of 260 days. Are there any questions?
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consideration of approval of classified and certificated administrator contracts.
Before we go on to that, Julie, I just want to remind the board to please stay after because I need signatures on Andrew's contract
Okay,
and on the proposed contract for
Okay.
Chris.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it then.
Okay.
Okay. All the contracts were presented in the packet and they are for Greg Alexander, the Laguna High School principal, Jenny Bruneman, Director of Facilities, Bonds and Technology, Gianna De Persistis Bona, Ann Lee, Vice Principal, Sheila Richmond, Wellness Coordinator, Laura Schmidt, District Director of Special Education, and Chuck Wade, Ann Lee High School Principal.
Questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Consideration of approval of employment contract for Chris Meredith, Superintendent. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, there are copies of the superintendent's contract over here on the table if anybody would like to pick one up. This is a contract term starting on July 1st, 2024 and terminating on June 30th, 2027. The annual salary for the superintendent for the 24-25 school year is $240,000, and there will be an annual base salary that will be automatically increased by 3% for each increase that will take effect on July 1st of the ensuing year. Sorry. I don't want to miss anything. The district will provide the superintendent with a $50,000 life insurance policy. The superintendent will have a work year of 225 days. The district will continue to pay for his AXA dues and a local service club. The master's stipend will be an annual stipend of $2,000. There's a vehicle allowance, which is the same as it has been. It's $350 a month, and a cell phone allowance, which is $100 a month, sorry. And then the health benefits will remain the same as they have been. Employee only, there's no contribution for the medical benefits. Employee plus one plus family, there's a 15% contribution. And the district will pick up the premium for the dental and the vision benefits.
Questions? Go
Comment.
ahead, Debbie.
So I just want to put on the record, well, first of all, there already was a straw vote in closed session, so this vote is somewhat of a sham. However, I do want to put on the record that I object to Julie doing this on her own, bringing it forward without board direction or input. The superintendent does have a contract that goes for one more year, and we didn't provide any input around creating this contract as a full board. And we received this last night at like 11 o'clock. Did not have time to review it, did not have time to participate in the creation of this. Like I said, our superintendent is 2 years into a 3-year contract. There is an urgency to get this done tonight, and I won't be supporting it.
I'd just like to say that I did not bring it without input from the board. We did discuss it. We talked about it before. We looked at comps and everything else before. It was not done with any intention on my own.
Mhm. And we went through the contract language in great detail in our closed session meeting today of any changes from the existing. So we had a good chance to review.
Any other comments?
I would like to say, though, that I would have appreciated more time to go over the contract that we're voting on tonight. Getting it last night, I was well, like I said, I just would have appreciated more time to go over the actual contract.
And as we agreed, I hear that, and we absolutely will develop a more concrete process in our next workshop. I think that would be helpful. I agree.
Agreed.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Abstentions?
That in the agenda item, much like Amber's, that's 5.
Oh, yes,
24,
absolutely,
27.
to 2027, correct. All right, if nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.